Don't take my word for it. Look that mess up, please.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King
An
Chaka.
educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized.
Learn to be active.
Looks like we got us another hit.
You tell her to get away from me. She's crazy.
Choose your destiny.
An educated and united public cannot be controlled. Get organized.
Learn to be active. Investigate both sides of the argument. Come up with your own conclusions.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? KCE, King Chaka.
Hey, how y'all doing out there? How y'all feel? Remember, an educated public cannot be controlled. Learn to be active. The views and events expressed here are totally whacked and are not necessarily the views of anyone. ¿Cómo estás? Bien, bien, bien. Podemos ayudarnos más? Sí se puede. Don't take my word for it. Look that mess up. How y'all feeling out there? Y'all feel good? I apologize for the sporadic nature of the live streams. I don't know. Things have been crazy. I haven't been feeling it. I ain't gonna lie. But today I felt compelled to come on. So here I am. The name of the show today is Bad Faith Argument. You know, I'm getting tired. I'm getting tired of the arguments where, like, if ignorance I can deal with, you know what I mean? Like not knowing or whatever, not being aware of like the facts or whatever is one thing. But when you're making arguments to deny reality, it just becomes really hard to deal with for me anyways, you know. And it tends to devolve. It causes, because here I try to make us have conversations where we're talking about topics, and when people come in from different points of view or whatever, and we try to hatch it out or whatever, you know, debate the topics, if you will, from our respective positions. And that's fine. That's good. I mean, that's a good thing. It's healthy. It moves the conversation forward, I think. You know, it hopefully gets us out of our algorithm, out of our you know, our feedback loops where we're just hearing the same thing over and over again, stuff that we agree with, you know. But the when people are making bad faith arguments, it causes the conversation to devolve into, like, you know, shouting matches or whatever. It devolves into like anger and you know, disregard and disrespect, you know. And I don't know, man, I'm getting pretty frustrated with that. My patience is falling when it comes to that. So it's like, I don't know, you know, I want to have these arguments. I want to have these conversations. I really do. I think they're healthy. But it's not productive when you devolve the conversation into, you know, pointing fingers and you know, you know, disrespectful attacks. So I don't know. That's just how I feel about it. You know, I'd like this channel to continue to grow, and I think that the content needs to improve for that to happen. And I put a lot of blame on myself. You know, I'm a one-man show. I don't have any writers. I don't have a producer. I don't have a lighting guy. I don't have a makeup guy. I don't have a mic guy. I don't have a tech guy. You know, I don't have an editing panel or whatever. It's all me. You know, and you know, there's only so much I can do as one person. And you know, I try to produce good content or whatever, and sometimes I know that it moves really slow. And you know, that's why I don't really like to look stuff up live, because that causes a lag or whatever. At the same time, the motto of the show is look that shit up, so I still do it whenever things pop up and it's relevant, and I think it's important for the conversation to get some clarity on it. I don't know. You guys make suggestions, leave comments or whatever. I got a comment on one of my videos that kind of struck me a bit. I ain't gonna lie. It kind of struck me a bit. It was a comment I got like yesterday or today, maybe it was. I think it was yesterday. I'm not sure. And the comment said, you know, King Chaka ENT isn't entertaining anyone as from the numbers. From looking at the numbers, King Chaka isn't entertaining anyone. That's what the comment said. So if you said that comment, okay, you did strike a nerve. I ain't gonna lie, buddy. But hey, if you look at the channel, the main channel, and you look at the overall views, I want to say I'm at like 1 million views. If I'm not there, I'm pretty damn close. Now that is over like 2 years, a little over 2 years. But hey, that's nothing to fucking sneeze at. And 1100 subscribers on the main channel, another 600 I want to say on the backup channel. Like, again, this stuff is not nothing to sneeze at. But what I feel I'm not happy about is like there's a good number of it's okay that I have followers that disagree with what I'm saying or whatever. I just think that overwhelming majority of the subscribers are people that don't really see the perspective that I'm coming from. I think that it's because of the reels, which is the only thing that gets the damn views, but people tend to not know where I'm coming from. I try to be, you know, some of the titles can be sarcastic or have sarcasm or whatever in them, and I could see how they could be misleading to some people, and some parody type stuff that I do or whatever. And you know, I'm very sarcastic with a lot of the comments that I make, and I think that sometimes people think I'm saying something other than what I'm saying, and I apologize for that. I don't mean to mislead anyone in any way whatsoever. And I really would like to get to the bottom of the reality of things. And if, you know, it's something that I support or point of view that I have that is wrong, like blatantly wrong, then I would like to be called out on that and have clarity on that, you know. But at the same time, on the other side, I should be able to do the same. And at some point, oh my God, we should come to a point where we can agree on what the facts are on things. Like, how do we get to this point where you can't even agree on the basic facts of things, like what actually happened or what actually was said or what was the history of a certain thing? Like, the reality of it, like good, bad, or ugly, whether you agree with it or not, is not a thing. How your feelings are on that is not a thing. Like what actually happened is what it is. It just is what it is. Like, I'm not proud of some things I've done in my past. I've said this before, and I'm not going to just say the things that I've done that I'm not proud of or whatever, but that's a reality that I have to accept. I've been wrong about many things. That's a reality that I have to accept. Like, how can we possibly move forward if we can't even agree on basic facts? Like, that is a real problem. Like, that's a true barrier. Like, I don't see any point in having a conversation on anything if we can't even agree on the basic facts, the basic reality, like, oh my God. Like, and like I say, if ignorance is what's driving that, that's one thing. But if it's bad faith arguments, then that's a whole nother thing, and like when we talk about politics all the time, people like to say that these people are incompetent. And I'm like, no, there's no way, bro. There's no way. People can't get into these positions being incompetent, bro. Like you can become like, I don't know, the CEO or something. I don't even think you could do that, but you can become like the leader of a company or something, like your parent put you in position or whatever. Like, and when you're in real true positions of power, you have to have competence to reach those levels, like period. Like you can be a dishonest person, but you have to be competent. Okay. So when you talk about these politicians and you try to give them a pass and say that they're incompetent, that's one of the ones that I can't swallow it. They're dishonest, shady, lying, incompetent. No. Anyways, there goes my soapbox for today. Feel like I had to get that out. Let me catch my breath and gather my thoughts, and we'll play some of let's play some what do we want to play? Let's do Democracy Now. Give myself a chance to get orientated. And I'll probably make some comments. And I think it's some disturbing stuff in this video. It always is when it comes to, it's Democracy Now! When they do the headlines. So I know I watched this video earlier today, but I don't remember all what was in it. So it could be some stuff that's disturbing.
Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. At least 17 Palestinians were killed in the Gaza Strip overnight after Israeli warplanes launched airstrikes on homes in the Nuseirat and Barej refugee camps. This came after at least 9 Palestinians were reported killed in another Israeli attack while waiting for aid trucks to arrive in the southern city of Rafah. This is Hamad Dalul, the aunt of one of the men killed in the strike.
They are merchants. They had nothing to do with anything. They were struck with missiles. There's no safety, no safety. These are innocent people, honest people who had nothing to do with anything. They killed the merchants. They killed people. They killed children. They killed women. They have mistreated us.
In Jerusalem, at least one person was wounded and 9 others arrested Monday night as thousands of protesters rallied near the home of Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Among those detained was a family member of an Israeli taken hostage by Hamas. It was one of dozens of protests taking place across Israel this week, demanding immediate elections and a Gaza ceasefire. This is 26-year-old Yotam Cohen, whose brother remains a hostage in Gaza.
The last 8 months have been emotional roller coaster for me and the other hostage families. And I think that without a struggle and without the protest, this deal will also be put down. And we're here to tell the government and shout for them to close the deal and to bring them home.
The chair of the House Foreign Affairs.
Man, Netanyahu is going through it, man. I don't see how he can make it through this without like it continuing to stay in power. Like I don't see that happening for this guy, you know, and there's a lot of people that are saying that the reason why things are happening the way that they are is because he's trying to hold on to power. And there could be a lot of truth in that. Because I don't see how he's gonna make it out of this. You know, he disbanded the war cabinet. 2 people within his government has stepped down, you know, protest against him. They're protesting outside of his home now. Like, I know he has been a controversial figure like throughout his career, and he's weathered the storm, you know, but I don't see him making it through this one. Let me see. Do I have the clip? Let me see. Do I have the clip? The Netanyahu clip. I don't see it. Oh, here it is. Let's go to this right quick.
When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had a candid conversation. I said I deeply appreciated the support the U.S. has given Israel from the beginning of the war. But I also said something else. I said it's inconceivable that in the past few months, the administration has been withholding weapons and ammunition to Israel. Israel, America's closest ally, fighting for its life, fighting against Iran and our other common enemies. Secretary Blinken assured me that the administration is working day and night to remove these bottlenecks. I certainly hope that's the case. It should be the case. During World War II, Churchill told the United States, give us the tools, we'll do the job. And I say, give us the tools and we'll finish the job a lot faster. When Secretary Blinken was recently here in Israel, we had...
Yeah, so they're talking about removing the caps of weapons that they could send to Israel, and I think that's going to happen. But, you know, I mean, it's really interesting, you know, this situation that Netanyahu is in right now. And, he, you know, it's like basically he has to beg the United States to give him what he needs so that he could do what he wants to do. And I don't know if y'all saw it, but Hezbollah flew a drone over Israel, I think today. And it was showing sensitive sites, sensitive military sites. And basically it was an embarrassment to the Israel, you know, the IDF, the military there. Do I have that clip? Oh, here it is right here. I don't know if it has news words to this. So basically they're broadcasting live footage of sensitive sites. Basically, like, you know, we have access to your stuff, bro. Like, not just information, but we can freaking attack you. So, in the group chat for the guys in the show earlier, we was talking about how, like, you know, they said that they're getting 18 to 25-year-olds mandatory signing up for the military in the United States. And I was saying, you know, that sounds like that they know that there's a possibility or a good possibility that an all-out war could break out involving the United States, and they want to make sure that they have enough people for it. So, and also what I said was that, you know, the Israeli situation is escalating, you know, and we already have troops on the ground. I don't know if that actually came out officially. I can't remember if I read any official stories that says it. I think there are some official stories that corroborate that we have boots on the ground in Israel. So you know, if live fire, like an escalated hot war breaks out, and you already got American troops on the ground over there that will be fighting in that, you know. And then on the other side of the world, well, on the other side of Asia, you got the Ukraine Russia thing kind of, it's dragging on, you know, turning into that Afghanistan. I said that before in the show, that that's what was going to happen, you know, another Iraq, you know, just dragging on, just dragging on. Meanwhile, the regular folks are losing, you know, steadily dying. But then you got Russian warships like off the coast of Cuba happened earlier this week. And it's like, bruh, like, I don't know I don't know if there's a precedent for that happening. So it's like, you know, and then you have these war games that they're doing, you know, prepping, and they're prepping nuclear weapons and stuff. Like, this stuff is really kind of crazy. And, you know, a lot of people are like cheering this shit on. Like, you know, United States kind of got lucky out of the situation, World War One and World War Two. Both of those situations could have went in a whole different direction. And, you know, regardless of like the propaganda that they teach you in history within your country about what happened, you know, the reality of the situation, like with World War II, I mean, what was it? The movie Saving Private Ryan. You know that situation had no real impact on the war. Okay, you guys, do your research and back me up on that shit or whatever. But no, it didn't. It was the Russian front that really had an impact on bringing the war to an end. I mean, look at the stories. They have plenty of movies where I'm using movies as an example just because the popular people kind of, that's what stays in their mind, and that's how they kind of look at historical events because of these movies or whatever, you know. But, you know, the people that study history are going to be able to back me up on this stuff. But it's like I said, there's plenty of movies that show at the end of World War II when it was the Russian troops who were there, and when Hitler offed himself or whatever, you know. So it's like, what I'm trying to say is that just because the United States has like a really strong military that it has, and just because it has had the dominance that it has had as a result of World War II, that doesn't mean that that's going to continue. And the way wars are fought now is totally different. You see how Yemen is causing all kinds of problems. They don't even have like a freaking real functioning government, bro. They don't have weapons like Russia or the United States or any of the big players, Iran, China. They don't have weapons like that. They're using like small tech, and they're giving the United States a hard, not just the United States, just there's a coalition of countries that is, you know, going in on Yemen, but they're giving them a hard time, like really giving them a hard time with low tech weapons. What I'm trying to say is that we don't know how this thing is going to turn out if it was to go into a hot, you know, all out war. And just because the United States spends more money on its military than like the next 5 countries combined doesn't mean that we're going to come out on top of this thing. Like, we got to face reality. This old America attitude is fine, but when it comes to reality, bro, we don't really want it, man. We haven't had live fire. We haven't had a war on American soil since, I don't know, somebody give the number, but it's like a long time, bro. Like a really long time. I want to say the Civil War was the last time we had and that was us against ourselves. You know, you had the Spanish American War. What was the dates for that? Anyways, we haven't had, we're so detached. It's easy for us to watch it on TV. We saw Saddam Hussein getting hung on live TV. I remember watching that shit. And I was like, oh my God, I can't even believe they're putting this shit on TV. It's kids watching this. Like, but you have dehumanized these people so much that you feel that it's okay to show this stuff on live TV. And then we're way on the other side of the world and we're insulated from this shit. And it's like, you know, America, whatever, you know, but bro, bombs start falling on American cities, you know, bullets start flying here from foreign weapons, bro, it's going to be a whole different story. And you could talk all that crap that you want. You know, I'm prepared. I got my weapons or whatever it is. Maybe I have a end of the world underground bunker or some shit, bro. Like a trained military, bro. A trained military with weapons and knowledge is something that you're going to have a hard time dealing with as regular Joe Blow. Trust me on that, okay? And it's like, okay, yeah, the terrain of the United States is a problem for anybody, you know, and I think that's a real reason why we haven't had live war here in the United States. We got mountains, we got rivers, we got freaking wide land. Like they said, a gun behind every blade of grass. And that's true and all, you know, and guerrilla warfare is a tough thing or whatever. But when you add in drones, when you add in AI, which has improved all the kinds of weapons, and when you add in nuclear freaking weapons, bro, the situation changes. I want to read some of this. It says, breaking, as expected, Netanyahu inevitably knifes Biden in the back. Republicans will cite this video extensively to hurt Biden. Biden sets himself up for this. He gave blind support to Netanyahu despite knowing Bibi would betray him. Biden only has himself to blame. Yep, and yep. And we got the debate coming up, and I'm sure all of this is going to come up. And Biden could have dealt with this situation a lot better. He keeps trying to placate to the center. You know, he's trying to, you know, please the center or whatever. I don't know. You try to be political in a situation like this where, you know, it's clear answers or clear, but you can't wholly blame Biden. So, okay, you know, and a lot of people say Biden's not even running the show. And I'm willing to, you know, go with that or whatever. You know, I'm sure there's a lot of other folks that have a lot more influence than Biden does. And it's the American policy. So that's the other part of it that people have to understand, because if Trump gets in there, it's not going to be much different, because these things are the policies. These are the American or United States policies. And you have the behind the scenes people, and you talk about the deep state or whatever. Trump never dismantled the deep state, as much as he want to say whatever about that, you know, drain the swamp. He did not do that. And, you know, you have these people who, these are bureaucrats. These are people that's like, regardless of who's the president, these are the same folks calling the shots. Like, they don't care who the president is. They don't care if it's Republican or Democrat. They're going to get what they want to get done, period, by any means necessary. And, you know, they're playing the long game, you know, decades game. They're not playing a 4-year, 8-year game. Okay, so they have stuff that they've been trying to get done for years, and they're going to keep on working towards getting that stuff done as best that they can. You know, you have to understand how the gears work and how the machine works. You have politicians, you have lobbyists, you have dark money, you have the Pentagon, who is, you know, has no real oversight. You know, you got the Homeland Security. You know, you got the Secretary of Defense. You have all of these factions, you know, and then you ask yourself who they're beholden to. And then you follow the money, you see where all of this money is coming from. You know, we have really rich individuals who have their own agendas, you know, but I don't even think that those folks that are really rich ones are the ones that pull the strings as much as these other folks who probably don't even know their names, who really, really pull the strings. Let me read some tweet replies. It says, what happened? I can't listen Milikowski, I might hurt my fist after I put it through my laptop screen. Who is he talking about? Another comment that says, yes, and this being the case, Biden should have shown some gumption and morality and recognized the state of Palestine while pressuring Israel to stop the genocide with ethnic cleansing. He still could. Another comment, and after Gaza is rendered uninhabitable in the name of defeating Hamas, then what? On wanders Gaza into the abyss, whether Israel can ever be a normal country or is endlessly in need of adversaries to satisfy an appetite. Yeah, man, it's like the reason why his name Ben Gvir stepped down is because he said that there's no plan for after the war that Netanyahu has put forward. So they're like, so once this is done, then what? No answer. Crickets. This one, it says, I know what I think of Biden's presidency. It's a complete failure, but I need to hear back from you, which is Biden's failures make you most want to support President Trump and the polls this November. Take the survey now. I think that when we start, one guy is going to save the world or whatever. One guy is going to fix all the problems, like whether somebody thinks it's Trump or somebody thinks it's Biden, or if they think it's someone else. I think we're freaking kidding ourselves big time. Like, how many times have they sold that to us? We're waiting for a savior. Like, come on, y'all. We need to snap out of that dream. Not going to happen. Most likely things are going to continue on the same road that they've been going on. Only slight differences. The differences will probably be cultural and non-sequential.
Affairs Committee has agreed to back the sale of $18 billion worth of F-15 fighter jets and other arms to Israel following intense pressure from the Biden administration. New York Congressmember Gregory Meeks had previously held up the weapons sales after objecting to Israel's attacks on civilians. Maryland Democrat and Senate Foreign Relations Committee Chair Ben Cardin has also signed off on the sales. This comes as a French court has reversed a ruling that would have seen Israeli weapons traders barred from the world's largest arms expo. The Eurosatory exhibition opened in Paris Monday without the participation of Israeli delegates and intermediaries after peace activists successfully argued a government ban on Israeli companies operating booths at the event didn't go far enough. Earlier today, however, a commercial court reversed that decision. The International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons, known as ICAN, is calling on the world's nuclear powers to stop ratcheting up tensions as a new report shows a surge in nuclear weapons spending. In a recent interview, NATO Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg said the military alliance is weighing, quote, how many nuclear warheads should be operational and which should be stored, unquote. The U.S. currently has nuclear weapons deployed in Italy, Germany, Turkey, Belgium, and the Netherlands, while Russia has recently deployed warheads to Belarus. ICAN said, quote, the NATO countries hosting U.S. nuclear weapons should admit to their citizens that they have these inhumane weapons on their soil without their say. No country should be demonstrating their willingness to join in the killing of millions of people, they said. On Monday, Stoltenberg visited President Biden at the White House and spoke at the Wilson Center think tank, where he boasted of NATO's increased weapons spending.
NATO creates a market for defense sales. Over the last 2 years, more than 2/3 of European defense acquisitions were made with U.S. firms. That is more than $140 billion worth of contracts for U.S. defense companies. So NATO is good for U.S. security, good for U.S. industry, and good for U.S. jobs.
It's all about money when it comes down to it. And these people are sociopaths. It's mutually assured destruction, man. And, if you think it can't go this way, recently I was watching a video about the Bay of Pigs and how close we came to like a live fire nuclear war. Like, I don't think people really realize how close we came to that happening. And we talk about the incompetence again, the incompetence of our leaders, but you don't think our so-called leaders, quote unquote, you don't think that it could get to a point where you got people pressing the button, you know? Like, man, you know, it would be crazy. It would be a crazy thing, but it could happen. It really could happen.
Secretary General. South Korea's military says its soldiers fired warning shots at about 24 North Korean troops who crossed the heavily fortified demilitarized zone separating the two countries. It was the second reported border incursion this month and came as Russian President Vladimir Putin departed for a state visit to Pyongyang, where he's set to meet North Korean leader Kim Jong-un to discuss trade, weapons sales, and military assistance. It's Putin's first visit to North Korea since 2000. In India,
you know, North Korea is talking about joining the BRICS, and I don't know if that could actually happen, but like I say, man, it's crazy to think that these things could really happen, but you know, I don't know what to say to get it through to people that it could, you know. We are, you know, the media makes money off of clicks. They want advertising dollars, right? So some of the best things to get clicks is this stuff that have people at each other's throats, whether it's a real thing or it's true or not. Like, it doesn't even really matter. They just want clicks. So they make this division. They build this division, you know. They build this animosity. They create others. They dehumanize others or whatever. You know, they tell you, you know, it's crime. You know, democratic cities are overwhelmed with crime, and you know, like the Democrats are, you know, going to bring America down and all of this stuff. Like, whether it's true or not, this causes this tension. And it causes these cliques, and they're just making money. They don't care about the long-term effects of this dehumanization, these culture wars, this division, this, you know, partisanship. You know, the algorithm is just feeding itself, you know, and you know. I saw a video the other day we were talking about on Instagram where, you know, depending on who you are, you even see different comments underneath the thing. It's comments that go along with your point of view or whatever. Like, they push them to the top or whatever, the algorithm. And it's like, again, like, you know, I guess it makes it user friendly and it makes people feel good. Like, it's other people that agree with them or whatever, you know, yay, America, whatever. But this is going down a very dangerous road that could lead to mutually assured destruction, man. Like, seriously. So we have to get to the point where we can, you know, agree on some facts and start having grown-up conversations about what needs to be done. You know, we'll never agree on some of this stuff. But the truth is, we agree on more stuff than we disagree on. Everybody wants the same things out of life. Like, they just want some safety, some security. They want to take care of their friends and family, you know, make enough money to live decently. Like, everyone has the same stuff, bro. Like, and when they have you looking at your neighbor as your enemy, you know, and you forget that these people are really just like you, like the problems that they have mostly are the same as yours, you know, that's what leads to this. And it's really, really dangerous. And these people don't care about us. They're just making money. Meanwhile, the regular folks, regular Joe Blow, me and you, we're the ones who's losing. I wish that one day we could wake up and realize that, you know, stop supporting these folks, like these people that are not in the same boat as you or whatever. Like these people, they live so different from you. The other ones, the ones that are, you know, benefiting from this situation, you know, and they think they can escape. They think they could go to their bunkers, or they can go to Mars, or to the moon, or the International Space Station or something, you know, and they're sociopaths. They're delusional. They're not going to make it either, you know.
Residents of New Delhi remain under a red alert, the highest level of warning, with daytime temperatures soaring past 110 degrees Fahrenheit. Meteorologists say northern India is in the midst of its longest ever heat wave, with highs in some areas pushing the limits of what humans can survive. In Saudi Arabia, at least 14 Muslim worshippers have died of heat stroke during the Hajj pilgrimage to Mecca. On Sunday, temperatures around the Great Mosque of Mecca reached 120 degrees Fahrenheit. In North America, an estimated 260 million people in the U.S. and Canada face temperatures of 90 degrees or higher this week, as a persistent heat dome is forecast to settle over cities, including Chicago, New York, and Toronto. Meanwhile, in western states, crews are battling fresh wildfires that have exploded in Los Angeles, Northern California's Sonoma County, as well as New Mexico and elsewhere. This comes as dozens of labor and environmental groups petition the Federal Emergency Management Agency Monday to include wildfires and extreme heat in its definition of a major disaster, as both events are set to get even more frequent and more destructive due to the worsening climate crisis. The European Union.
Yeah, I don't know how anybody can still make the arguments that climate change is not a real thing, but whatever. I think that wherever you are on that topic, changing the way we build our infrastructure, you know, supporting our infrastructure, updating our water, you know, changing the way we build our cities, you know, I don't see how anyone could disagree with that. You know, more plants, less concrete, you know, more trees, more gardens. I don't see how anyone could argue with that. I saw a post that was showing how in one country they built you know, they planted a bunch of plants and stuff around there, like on top of their buildings and stuff like that, and around their infrastructure, like their freeways and stuff like that, and it brought down the temperature of the city by like 2-3 degrees Celsius. Like that's a huge ass change. And like, you could say global warming isn't real, but wouldn't you like your city to be 2 to 3 degrees cooler as a result of better, you know, building, you know, better engineering of your, you know, your infrastructures, the way we build our cities, stuff like that, you know, we'll be a lot healthier too, you know, in other ways, regardless of the global warming thing. You know, if we walked a little bit more, we bicycled more, you know, we weren't in traffic in our commute an hour plus every day, that's going to make you healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, financially. You can spend, if nothing else, the financial part should be enough to motivate people. The money that you spending on gas in your commute, you know, stopping for snacks and stuff like that when you're going through drive-throughs, you probably wouldn't do any of that if it wasn't for your long ass fucking commute. Like the road rage.
Union has approved a landmark environmental law that will require the bloc's 27 member states to restore nature on at least 1/5 of their land and sea by 2030. Over 80% of Europe's natural habitats are considered to be in poor health. At least 11 asylum seekers have died, and dozens are missing after 2 shipwrecks off the southern coast of Italy. Over 50 migrants were rescued Monday from a sinking wooden boat, while another boat, which had set off from Turkey, caught fire and overturned. Many of the refugees came from Syria, Egypt, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. The International Organization for Migration estimates more than 27,000 migrants have died in the Mediterranean Sea over the last decade as they attempt to reach Europe from northern Africa. The Biden,
you know, and I was thinking about how the news chooses which stories they cover. you know, to give you certain narratives. Like I keep seeing
I'm
the
trying to
story
figure
about.
out. I want to know why they're using migrants to describe refugees.
Yeah.
Migrant and migrant gives an understanding, like with us. Migrant is the people that were traveling back and forth to do work and stuff like that, not just people who are traveling to somewhere to try to get to somewhere else.
Right. I think I hear you on that one. Because migrant, you know, and like when you start talking about asylum seeker,
it implies reason and employment, you know, beyond I'm just trying to get the hell out of here because shit's bad.
yeah. Yeah, so that's the thing that the media does, is they play with those words all the time. And that's what I was gonna say was that the story of the guy who he was a migrant or illegal or whatever term you want to use, and sexually assaulted some like a 15-year-old girl or whatever. And that's been playing over and over on the news the last couple of days or whatever.
The newest case of it.
Yeah, very new story. And
This is not the problem. Is everyone saying all I see it all the time. I see it all the time. It's like you're not seeing the same stories though.
well, no, this story was shown over and over again, is what I'm saying, on different
It's an election
news
year,
stories. You know, and it's been multiple stories similar to that have been getting heavy play, you know. And that's what I'm saying, is like the news, the media chooses which stories they want to cover and which ones they want to lead off on and which ones they want to continue to have their opinion talking heads talk for hours on or whatever. And it's like it's not that this thing didn't happen. It's just that they make it into more than it is, and it's so many other stories that you can cover that are even on the opposite side of that story.
Here's the other side that's worse of it. Here in Houston, it happens regularly. It happens all the time, and people just overlook it and cover it because it's not really that big. It's something that happens. It mostly happens in the communities. It mostly happens in the communities where they try to keep the cops out and away. I mean, but it happens regularly, daily basis almost. And people aren't looking at, when you actually look at the crime statistics and what's going on, it's friggin' a lot worse than people are making it look in some places, and a lot better than it is in others.
Yeah, I'm saying that the media is giving a narrative. It's raw meat. It's red meat is what it is.
What do you want to get? What do you want to bet? Since I don't know this particular case, what do you want to bet that the state that it happened in is a border state? And I'm not saying border, I'm saying red-blue border, not country border.
Man, I wish I could remember.
I think it was one of those that may go either way depending upon how things happen.
I want to say it was New York.
New York has got is steeply losing ground with the Democratic voters.
Yeah.
Not enough to change the whole state, but enough to make them go into protective mode.
Let me play some more of this.
The administration's announcing a new policy that would protect tens of thousands of undocumented immigrants who are married to U.S. citizens from deportation and grant them a pathway to citizenship. The measure is likely to benefit some 500,000 people who've lived in the United States for at least 10 years and who would otherwise face mounting bureaucratic and legal challenges to obtain these protections if they entered the U.S. unauthorized. They'll also be allowed to obtain work permits. President Biden's announcing the policy at the White House later today, marking the 12th anniversary of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, or DACA, which provides deportation relief for undocumented immigrants who were brought to the U.S. as children. This comes just weeks after Biden issued a measure temporarily shutting down the U.S.-Mexico border and denying asylum to most migrants who do not cross into the U.S. via ports of entry.
High school, they should be allowed citizenship anyway. If they
Yeah,
spend 8, 10, 12 years in our education system, they can't go back to their country and realistically survive. They're
yeah.
not from wherever their country is. They're Americans now.
The
A
process
lot of
is
these
so
kids, this is the only country that they've ever known. If they end up like I say, if they end up graduating through high school, if it's a couple like that or the parents of kids like that, then yeah, we should let them stay as long as they register and get in with a citizenship program. Now, maybe they don't have to wait as long as other ones we're letting in, because the whole part of it taking so long is so you can take your time to integrate into American culture instead of just coming here with your culture, getting your paperwork, and then isolating yourself without really being part of the American experience, positive or negative, how that is.
yeah. It's just that the process is so, convoluted and full of red tape. And this is Biden playing both sides against the middle. On one hand, he's essentially closing the border to asylum
Okay.
seekers.
Biden is and has always been hard on immigration and a racist. I don't care what he says now. I don't care the changes. I grew up listening to his racist fucking bullshit.
I agree with you wholeheartedly with that comment.
I mean, he sat there and said, if you don't know if you want to vote for Trump or me, then you're not black. That was a serious problem to me. And I'm not going to let that one go because of how many people lost their lives, careers, and jobs and the ability to work in any kind of public situation over statements similar to that.
Yeah. And he just gets a pass because he's, he was the vice president of the first black
And he
president.
didn't even say it anywhere near as well as Robert Downey Jr. would have.
Yeah, it would have been funny if Robert Downey Jr. said it. But yeah, so this is him playing both ends against the middle, and this is his political strategy. And I don't think that it's gonna work. Like, people can see especially when you try to play both sides, like you lose both sides when you do that. And that's what's gonna happen with Biden. He's gonna lose his left people, and the right people are gonna be like, bro, you are full of shit. They're both gonna say you're full of shit. So
I don't think Biden can win on policy.
He could if he chose the right policies.
No, I'm saying that's just it. He hasn't chosen the right policies. The policies done are either condescending to his original base or bending the knee towards the people that he doesn't really want, but he won't win if he doesn't get their vote.
Well, I have to say, the Trump effect has had a major influence on the political discourse. It really has changed a lot of things. Like I saw a post talking about
this shit goes back to Clinton. It's not just the Trump effect. If you really want to say it, if you really want to get honest, you should call it the Obama effect. He was the one that changed it from being politicians to celebrities. That changed the rules of the game, how the game was played, the productions, the way money was made, the way money spent.
We're talking about policy right now, though, and I agree with you on the celebrity thing, but the policies, and what gets to a chance and what doesn't, and what is allowed and what's not. And it's like I saw a post about McCain and how, before he died, he was pushing back against Trump and, from the right. And it's like at this point, no one has the balls to push against Trump from the right. You know what I'm saying? That is one of the things that have changed. Because it's like suicide for your career.
Really has the balls to push against Biden either. Neither side has a worthy candidate. And I'm talking about the two that they've got that are up front right now. I don't consider either of them worthy to be my president. I can't bring myself. There's just enough shitty about both of them that I can't, with a clean conscience, say that man can represent me.
I ain't gonna lie, man. And it's like, I don't know. I think a lot of us are gonna hold our nose and vote this time.
Here in New York, Governor Kathy Hochul has come under fire from health experts after saying she's exploring whether to reinstitute a partial ban on face coverings in public spaces. Hochul's comments came during an interview on CNN where she was asked by reporter Laura Coates if she would support a call by Jewish leaders to ban masks so pro-Palestinian protesters can be more easily identified.
I absolutely will go back and take a look at this and see whether it can be restored, because it is frightening to people. You're sitting on a subway train and someone puts on a mask like this and comes in. You don't know if they're going to be committing a crime, they're going to have a gun, or whether they're just going to be threatening and intimidating you because you are Jewish, which is exactly what happened the other day. Absolutely unacceptable in the state of New York.
You know, and this story is so crazy to me. And as much as I disliked the masks, I would never put them up over my nose. I hated them. But if somebody wants, if somebody wants to wear the mask because they feel like it protects themselves or whatever, then they should have that right to do that. Like, taking that away from them is just the same as on the other side of the argument of forcing people to wear masks when they didn't feel like it was necessary or whatever.
New York is still one of those states that there's a lot of places that you can't go to if you don't have your vaccine passport.
Yeah, I don't know if that's true, but what we're talking about here,
it's still in places in New York. They still have mask mandates in public buildings.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that, but what we're talking about here is this lady saying, you know, she wants to make it illegal for people to wear masks on the subway. And what I'm saying is that's absolutely ridiculous, regardless of how I feel about the masks, to force people to, you know, not be able to wear them. You know, if they're it's a bunch of people there breathing on you and shit, and like you want to feel more comfortable on the subway with a little mask on or whatever, like boom, allow these people that freedom to be able to do that. You know, you can't have your cake and eat it too and say, you know, y'all were forcing me to wear masks and that was wrong, and then turn around and force people to not be able to wear masks. Like, either way is wrong.
New York City Council member Shahana Hanif called the governor's comments inexplicable and said a mask ban would, quote, serve to appease reactionary voices and go against logical health protections. Mask bans won't deter crime, but only hinder public health, Council member Hanif said. New York City Mayor.
And what I would say on the other side of this is like those poo shiesties or whatever, those full face masks that people wear, that's like a fashion trend or whatever. I don't like those. I ain't gonna lie. They bother me. And, you know, I do feel like you're like up to no good if you want to wear those, especially like it's hot outside or something, like you're comfortable in this thing and it's covering your face completely. Like, but again, freedom is another thing. So if people aren't committing crimes, like we have all of these technologies to
understand a bandana over your face is not a mask. Nowadays, if you're wearing a bandana over your face, it's because you're trying to hide your identity or the guy next to you stinks. It never did protect. We found that out. It doesn't. So if they're wearing those kind of masks and things like that, that's not the same thing as wearing a mask for the prevention of catching other people's breath.
Right. And so, but still, where would you draw the line as far as if you make it illegal for these people to wear masks?
Oh, there's a couple of cities that have completely banned the use of, and now some of these are southern cities, mind you, ones that never really get freezing temperatures, but they've completely banned the ninja mask.
Yeah, I don't like
the
that.
The full hood mask.
Yeah. I don't like that mask.
I've never been a fan of those.
Yeah, they make me feel uncomfortable. But you know, what
So do
about
these big wraparounds that they pull up and you know they're just there. It's friggin' 80 degrees outside and they're sitting around, you know, all this pulled up, hands in their down covered or stuff and just kind of looking like that bugs the shit out of me. I don't say anything because, you know, no move, no foul, you know, no touch me, no foul.
but if
It
she's
still
talking
creeps me
about
the fuck out.
she's talking about banning masks, then what if someone is wearing like you know, those actually the ones that actually filter air and really do
Those,
protect you,
those
you
would not
know.
be bannable. I mean, specifically because the mandate is any kind of health facility right now. Anyone that treats people in any way or anything like that. So like any medical facility, any place you go in, back pharmacy area, Kroger, stuff like that.
Yeah, well, you know, whenever you go into a medical facility, they're still making you wear masks. So that part I know is true. They still have
Well,
that
no,
here in Houston.
that's the New York mandate right now. It is officially backed off to that as of January.
So, but what I'm saying is, if you're banning the masks, then
I'm correcting myself. In other words,
you know, it's gonna be a problem to determine, you know, what masks are you talking about or whatever. You know what I mean? That you know, it's way
it's
too
simple.
problematic.
PPE masks are excluded from the ban.
Yeah, but we could say that that's how it should be. But we know what happens whenever they pass legislation.
Yeah, they're
Like,
just going to switch instead of those. They're going to have a PPE mask, or they're going to pull a full face mask that incorporates a PPE filter into it.
well, what I'm saying is the interpretation of the law and how the law is written or whatever. Like, we've had our arguments related to abortion, and we're like, well, it should be like this and it should be like that, and we can make that argument about how it should be, but the way the law is interpreted doesn't align with the way it should be or whatever. You get what I'm saying?
Well, it's not just that. The way that people use the law out of spirit. We're talking about the spirit and the letter of the law and the difference between the two. I mean, we've come across that, but like I said, technically it is not unreasonable to ban all but PPE masks during certain times of the year. Here in Houston, they could get by with it. No one's going to die without a warmth mask. In New York, there's 4 or 5 months out of the year
It's freezing.
that you need some sort of protection for face, throat, all that stuff. So that's where we get to the point where you're saying that's an unreasonable law because, you know, now, like I said, when we're talking about bandanas as face masks, you know, those little half pull-up things, basically the turtleneck thing that you pull up.
Yeah, the shiesty mask.
No, when I talk about those, I'm talking about the full hoodie mask.
Okay, yeah.
Full,
I'm confused.
Like Strike Force mask.
I got you. I got you now.
Ski mask.
Yeah.
Ski mask. That's what they're called.
Yeah.
Though I've never seen those needed in Texas.
Yeah.
Even in North Texas, it don't get that cold.
Let me play some more of this.
Eric Adams has also backed a possible mask ban, citing protests as well as crimes committed by masked people. Meanwhile, New York City Controller Brad Lander and others say they will bring legal challenges to Governor Hochul's halting of New York City's congestion charge plan, which would charge drivers $15 to enter parts of Manhattan. The plan, which had been scheduled to go into effect later this month, would put billions back into New York City's ailing public transportation system and significantly reduce car pollution. A federal judge.
What do you think about that? You know, charging people to go to certain areas of Manhattan, you know, to cut down on the amount of traffic, basically.
I think New York is, if they decide to continue sticking it up the ass of the working class and shit like that, is going to have a whole lot of companies and people move away. Oh, wait.
Yeah, because
that's already happening because of the friggin' what's going on in the legal system right now.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. The regular person are the ones that's gonna get screwed out of that situation. You know, when they
it's real simple. If your money and stuff like that, you register your car in Manhattan, or you register your company and its ownership in Manhattan, and then since it's registered into the city, they're not going to be allowed to charge it passing in and out. The rich people that can do that and have the ability to have multiple addresses to do things at, they're the ones that are going to be okay.
Yeah.
So your big buildings, anyone that makes less than more than 100,000 a year is going to be able to write that off. And plus, all of that technically is going to be able to be a write-off because it's necessary because of work.
The intention sounds good, but it's just not practically, it's not good for the regular person. Like, they're not going at it in the right way.
If you think about all the write-offs, the federal income write-offs, it's going to be basically, that's New York State asking the rest of the country to provide what? 30 to 50% of that tax for them. That's reaching into our pockets to subsidize the companies that are going to get insurance tax reductions because of those laws.
Let me play some more.
Judge Monday blocked the Biden administration's expanded Title IX protections in Kentucky, Indiana, Ohio, Tennessee, Virginia, and West Virginia. The federal regulation was recently expanded to increase civil rights protections for transgender students who experience sex discrimination and harassment, and for pregnant people and survivors of sexual assault in schools. Days earlier, another federal judge temporarily blocked the new rules from taking effect in Idaho, Louisiana, Mississippi, and Montana. Title IX compliance is required to receive federal education assistance, but Republican states have been fighting against its expansion of protections for trans children. Thailand's Senate has overwhelmingly approved a marriage equality bill, making it the first country in Southeast Asia to recognize same-sex and non-binary couples. If Thailand's king grants final approval, the new law will allow any two people aged 18 or older to wed and grants them equal rights to adopt children, inherit property, claim tax breaks, and more. This is 18-year-old Saifa Kyoka Shadlad, who helped draft the marriage equality bill.
Thank you for all your determination to see the same-sex marriage bill through. This is not just about amending a law, it is also going to change the lives of those in the LGBTQ community and their families. As an 18-year-old non-binary youth, this is an important step for society and for our future. We are very proud to make history today where love triumphed over prejudice.
And after...
Yeah, comments?
Dude, that is huge. That is huge. I mean, if you go to Thailand right now, they don't recognize this whole gender bathroom stupidity like they're doing here in the United States. If you're just on the street, a party street or something like that as a tourist, you're going to walk down, you're going to hit a bathroom, and you're going to see this long line coming out of the men's restroom. About 40 to 60% of them are some of the hottest looking chicks. It's like, damn, they're all hot. It's like, no. They come with extra packaging. No pun intended. I mean, they look great. You would not know if they weren't in that line, or if you didn't get told or something like that. You'd be like, I mean, this is one of the places where you let that friend get kissed on by the hot chick and stuff like that at the bar. He's like, I've never met a woman like you. It's like, yeah, you still haven't met one yet. I mean, but the lady boys, they're not allowed to do this, and gay marriage, all this, all through that Southeast Asia, like Japan, China, all the way down through all of that stuff. That's always been very taboo. I mean, they don't throw you off of buildings and shit like that, but you don't get same-sex marriage rights and things like that. This is like a big step for them. I'm kind of happy. I'm sorry. This is the modern era. Marriage has not been strictly a religious institution for years. we need to recognize that while marriage is marriage, and what we feel about it and how we treat it and enact marriage is very precious and very dear to us. At the same time, a legal definition, marriage as a legal union, is an entirely different subject.
Mm.
When you go to the courthouse and the justice of the peace or something like that says you're married, it's cool. That is a different contract than standing in front of a preacher or a minister saying, here under God, we enter this contract.
Mm.
And since they are two different things, it is not unreasonable that the legal definition, the law definition of marriage can shift and change, while the religious and the faith spiritual marriage can still remain the same.
Mm.
And we should be able to get along with that, understanding that, hey, if you really want to take it back to the religious roots, just sit there and go, well, you cannot actually prevent them because that is against what Jesus says. It's against what God says. You can't force them to not do it. All you can do at most is just go to hell on your own.
Yeah.
And that's what Christians need to realize, is the fact that we have a belief system and all that, but not everyone does. No one belief system can ultimately be right because of culture, because of where people come from the stories that took their caveman ancestors into their modern day. Because all of us come from different areas, but we all end up heading toward the same direction. And that's where we start to have to measure. It's like, well, we've got a whole lot of, I'm going to call them more fundamental Islam, because modern Islam is not as murderous towards that kind of thing. But a lot of our refugees that we were talking about earlier, we were saying refugees, not migrants, they're leaving the Middle Eastern countries right now because of the harshness and the strengths of the beliefs against things like that.
Let me play some more of this.
Half a century behind bars, former Black Panther Veranza Bowers has been released. He was sentenced to life in prison in 1973 for the murder of a U.S. park ranger based on testimony from government informants. He's consistently claimed his innocence. Many call him one of the longest-serving political prisoners in U.S. history. He was freed in May from the Federal Medical Center in North Carolina. In a video shared with Democracy Now!, 70-year-old Bowers said he became a healer in prison and hopes to continue his work on the outside.
And I learned one thing during incarceration, that a man or a woman has to sooner or later make a decision, make a choice as to how they intend to live life inside. Long ago, I made a decision. I made a choice to help my fellow men to heal and to find peace in the chaos. And that chaos will be raging all around, swirling. And anyway, I was able to do that by utilizing the soothing and healing sounds of my beloved shakuhachi. That's a bamboo flute that I blow, and meditation.
Veranza Bowers.
Man, it's nice that he's able to turn this around, but this is really like a really sad story, 50 years in prison. What did they say? Based on the testimony of some FBI informants, did this guy actually commit these crimes?
See, here's the thing, though, man. You got to understand, at least 3 presidents have approached the idea of pardoning him. And after their law people and get to him, and they discuss the situation, he's passed over for other people. And I'm not knocking him. I don't know why. He sounds like a really cool dude that I wouldn't mind sitting down, drinking some tea or coffee with and having a discussion. He has an aura of peace about him that I don't normally see people coming out of jail with, just listening to him.
Yeah. So, but the people were saying that he's like one of the longest political prisoners ever, and it's like, you know, you said
That's
that the
because it was the white people that convicted him over the stuff, and he was Black Panther, which was a militant group. So of course it's going to be racial. It's every Black Panther in jail is a political prisoner if you read the information on the Black Panther page.
Yeah, well, if you also if you face reality, because like you know, overall these guys weren't criminals. I mean, they
See,
got
you're
breakfast for kids.
you're generalizing off of the things and stuff like that, but you have to look into each one individually. You can't just see these guys, this one, that one. You know, it's this one and that one. It's not these guys. It's not in general. A lot of them are bad and nasty people who did some violent and ill shit. And there are reasons. And there are reasons why they don't get brought out. And there's reasons why some of their brothers and other people have.
I disagree. Let's move
No,
on.
I'm not. I will never agree in an all or nothing kind of situation like that. That's
Let me
just
put-
like saying because they're Black Panthers, they deserve to be pardoned no matter what. Mostly more because you agree with their ideology than you actually know anything about the individual.
Let me play some more of this.
Hours, former Black Panther freed from prison after half a century behind bars. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. Coming up, in a sweeping move, the governor of Maryland's pardoned 175,000 marijuana convictions ahead of Juneteenth. Back in a minute.
No, that guy right there, I remember him from back in the 80s. And him being one of the people that is pardoned because he was arrested and jailed and all that during the time that it was popular to do it to the party, less about what was done, and he got a longer sentence because he was Black when anyone else would have gotten like a 10 to 15 year sentence, and he got like I think he got like a 40-year, and there may or may not have been other things involved, but he got a longer sentence that was reasonable for even a regular murder at the time.
Yeah.
An original composition by Veranza Bowers Jr., played on his 5-hole bamboo flute known as a shakuhachi. The former Black Panther was released from prison in May after half a century. He credits his music and meditation with becoming a healer while he was incarcerated. This is...
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Let's read a couple of comments. Under here it says, protect Palestinians, hold Israel accountable. Another one that says, never forget Israeli Prime Minister Yitzhak Rabin spoke of peace and it cost him his life. The crime was not committed by a Palestinian. Another one, it says, Israel should not be allowed to have nuclear weapons of any kind. Another one, it says, criminalizing safety masks. Are you kidding me? That is incredibly stupid. Another reason to avoid New York. Another one, it says, this old Black Panther, his sweet soothing music and his new outlook on life is wonderfully inspiring. I wish him well. Another comment, wonderful footage of Veranza browsers with his healing music. Something positive, thank you. Another one, it says, good, now free Leonard Peltier. Another comment, it says, killed when waiting for food aid. We seem to have heard this many times. Another comment, can't imagine how your reporting has remained so objective. Would want to shake my fist at all of these atrocities. Glad for your show. Another one, he became a healer in prison. That's powerful. Another comment says, looks like hardly any government represents their citizens. The parties all offer the same. Another one, it's crazy how nobody stands against these people. Couple more, we'll move on. It says, chosen people of promised land unleashed their violent nature to the indigenous people of the land they occupied. Infuriating, unbearable, and heartbreaking. One more. United States of Israel, U.S. was taken over without a shot being fired. Yep. Let me see. Let's look at some headlines right quick. Associated Press. Top headline, it says, Willie Mays, Giants electrifying, says, hey kid, has died at 93. The Giants center fielder with his signature basket catch was one of the game's greatest and most beloved players. He hit more than 600 home runs, totaled more than 3,000 hits, and was a joy to behold in the outfield. Willie Mays. Yeah. This one, it says, ship attacked by Yemen's Houthi rebels and fatal assault sinks in Red Sea and second such sinking. Yeah, this is kind of, I mentioned Yemen earlier in the show and how, like, you know, superior military force doesn't necessarily mean you can win, especially nowadays. So here's an example, the Houthi rebels sinking a ship, you know, using, you know, not superior weaponry, if you will, for lack of better freaking phrase. That was a terrible phrase. I apologize. Another headline, it says, Texas megachurch pastor resigns after woman says he sexually abused her in the 1980s. Another one, Russian President Vladimir Putin makes a rare visit to North Korea, an old ally. Yeah, what is that about? Like, what can we read behind the headline on this one, you know? Russia visiting North Korea. What message is that supposed to be sent to the world? Like, this guy doesn't do anything, you know, without thinking it thoroughly through. So what message is he sending to the rest of the world, you know? You know, Russia.
This guy is a chess grandmaster and 7 moves ahead of everything.
Yeah.
I mean,
so
Putin, you know, you the whole time you heard me yelling about how bad he is, you have never at any time heard me insult his intelligence or say anything other than this man is a mastermind. And
yeah, so Russia is a nuclear power and so is North Korea. And then he's going over there having a meeting. Like, what the hell are they talking about?
Maybe see if he can get some of that yellow cake we gave Iran to him.
Yellow cake. Man, the freaking Dave Chappelle skit on that was so hilarious. Oh my God. When that came out, I was on the floor laughing at that shit. I'm like crying. That was so
might have
funny.
missed that. I stopped watching him for a while when he was like really racist.
That was the show. It's so long ago. It was when the Chappelle show was on.
Yeah,
Really
if it was toward the beginning, I probably saw it and forgot it. If it was toward the end, it was after I stopped watching it.
Yeah, I want to say it was the early 2000s. It only did 3 seasons, really 2.5, because the last season he wasn't even on it.
The one thing that bothers me about most of the black comedy shows, skit shows, and stuff like that is the first 2 or 3 years, maybe, or the first, you know, little bit, they're on everybody. Everybody gets ragged on. And then the longer they go, the more they lean toward only making fun of white people.
Mm.
And it takes the magic out because instead of just fucking with everything, it's just another show. I mean, I'll give you an excellent example of an 80s show that went that way. In Living Color. They were great the first few seasons, and then the last another one. Well, this one is more the 5-minute skit that they run 20 minutes long through half of their show would be Martin. I mean, he'd have 5 minutes of funny, and his skit would be like 15 minutes long. Normally involved him in a dress or acting like a female and something like that. And it just got so repetitive and old.
Yeah.
You know, go ahead.
Let me read some more headlines. Another one, it says record-breaking U.S. heat wave scorches the Midwest and Northeast, bringing safety measures.
You're still showing Willie Mays. Oh, you're doing headlines up to the right. Okay.
Yeah, it's over here to the right.
Yeah, Willie Mays, man. Rest in peace, brother.
Yeah.
He broke ground. He's one of the men that broke ground for black people in baseball. He deserves the props for that. People need to remember that. I mean, who cares if some people call him token and bullshit? It don't matter. He was one of the first. He took that beat down. He took that hit. He took that press, and he made it possible for the next man and the next man. He took a little pressure off of them and a little pressure off of them. And then finally there was enough in him that it wasn't that big of a deal anymore. And now, well, crap, half of our teams are South American nowadays because they love baseball more than we do.
Let me read another headline. It says, Trump declares, I love Milwaukee after reportedly using the word horrible for the RNC host city. Yeah. Yeah. It's like the rock and roll band who forgets which city they're in when they're like, thank you, Milwaukee. And you're like, bro, we're in
This is
San
Boulder,
Antonio.
Colorado, asshole.
Another comment, it says,
I honestly have to admit I have been to more than one concert in Houston where the band or one of the bands in the night says, we love San Antonio.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, in their defense,
I'm not going to knock them when they literally played there last night.
Yeah, and in their defense, San Antonio and Houston looks a lot alike as far as
vibe,
when you drive
as
around.
long as you don't get into the bad areas, the vibe is kind of similar too. If you go down Washington, you get into the party areas, it's the same kind of vibe that it is in San Antonio. And it also just happens to be not too close to a bayou.
And the freeways look the same, and
And Woodlands, if they're in the Woodlands doing like a Woodlands concert, the best party areas in the Woodlands are right along that walkway where literally you walk from the restaurants over the little water walkway to where the concerts are played.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
They normally stay in that hotel right there.
What is it
And
called?
that's a
Woodlands
great
Pavilion.
party area. Yeah, that's the outlet, or that's the venue.
Well, let me read a couple more. It says, mom of transgender girl athlete says Florida's investigation has destroyed her daughter's life. Mom of transgender girl's athlete says Florida's investigation has destroyed. I don't even know that story, but I'm not going to get into it. Another one, Justin Timberlake arrested. What do you need to know about the pop star? Oh. Another one, NVIDIA stock market value topped 3.3 trillion. How it became number one in the S&P 500 by the numbers. 3.3 trillion.
Amazing how that big upward trend started right after Miss Pelosi went over there and talked to them. Interesting how before she was even back from that trip, her husband shifted massive amounts into their stock.
Yeah. And something related to some chips, the chip manufacturing or some
video chips, and the fact that they're going to try to sponsor a chip manufacturing over here, a company, if it can become viable, which we need chip manufacturers here. Because if a bad thing happens right now, America becomes a third world country until we can get shipments from other third world countries where they're made. And that requires all of those ships to have their chips replaced before they can ship that shit over here.
This
EMP
headline-
is evil, dude.
This headline right here says thousands of NATO troops join drills in the strategically sensitive Baltic Sea region. See, that's what I was talking about, them damn war games revving up. Not a good sign, really.
Well, you gotta understand, this area has been plagued by these pirates a whole lot through this area. So a whole bunch of countries said, you know what? If the pirates are going to be there, why don't we just do maneuvers and war games in that area? It's all, this country against this country, tracking the boat, saying, yeah, we can take you out, boom. It's play games. But it creates a multinational military presence in an area where pirates and all of that are at the most frequent thing right now. I mean, it's actually a good plan because it stops solo boat. There's less likelihood of them going after the merchants and stuff like that and the smaller boats if they know there's warships in the vicinity. And SOS can get out, they can actually be saved instead of being sunk.
Let me play some of this. It says, what we're seeing is exactly Ukraine becoming the Afghanistan of Europe.
We've been talking between the three of us that are mainly on here. We've been talking about that since it began.
Yeah, like endless ass war.
I even talked about how we got Russia to pull out of Afghanistan and Iraq and all of that because that's how we used that war to financially break them during the Cold War.
Mm-hmm.
And then after the Cold War, they pulled out, and all of a sudden they all started going anti-America. We're not gonna help you with oil. We're not gonna participate. And then we're like, oh shit, why don't we jump in that 3,000-year-old war that's never gonna be solved?
Yeah, and deplete our resources. It's like, it's such a dumbass thing. Like, I was watching a video about it and they were saying that like these people aren't very smart about and then there goes the argument like at the beginning of the show where I was saying that you can't call these people naive because or incompetent or whatever, they're really smart. So then it's like, what the hell was their plan? If they used Afghanistan to break Russia, then they're going to turn around and do the same thing to themselves. Like, what the hell is the logic? What is the logic in that? Let me play some of this.
No one has explained to the public what is really a 30-year project to expand our pieces on the board all over the former Soviet Union. No one's explained Project Ukraine. No one has explained to the public that Zbigniew Brzezinski, by the way, whom I liked and thought was really a smart guy, how he laid out in 1997 the strategy. Clearly, it's in a paper called The Strategy for Eurasia in Foreign Affairs magazine. He says by 2005 to 2010, we'll be inviting Ukraine to join NATO. This was a long-term plan. It's backfired. It's gone terribly wrong. And you ask me, what's the truth about Ukraine? The truth is that Ukrainians are dying or being seriously wounded at a rate of typically more than 1,000 per day right now, sometimes even twice that number. There's an incredible destruction of Ukrainian society underway right now. And the few people that are in charge of this policy, whether it's Zelensky, I don't know if he's in charge, people say he'd be killed if he tried anything else, but the few people that are in charge on the Ukrainian side and the very few people that are in charge on the American side, because they're running this whole war, are really fighting to the last Ukrainian. Right? This is what's actually happening. It's terrifying. This is not a democratically elected government in Ukraine. This is a government of martial law that has overstayed its constitutional limit. There is no internal constraint. People are being shot at the rivers, the border with Romania, for example. If they try to swim across the river to avoid conscription, people are being dragged off the streets right now because they're being sent to the front lines with no training, essentially. Maybe they're told how to handle a gun and how to load it, but then they're sent off to the front lines and they're dying in huge numbers right now. And this is American policy. This is our policy. This is supposedly in the defense of freedom. This isn't in the defense of freedom. This is in the quest to put our peace on the board in this game of risk that we're playing. Now, it's all turning extraordinarily dangerous. The Ukrainian regime is very radicalized. It is fighting for its survival as a regime and killing a lot of its citizens in the process. But it's doing things that are extraordinarily dangerous, sometimes at the provocation. The British, for example, always provoking. They were an empire longer than we've been an empire. And their behavior is even worse, though they have less power now. But they always tell the Ukrainians, go smash the Russians wherever you can. And a couple of weeks ago, the Ukrainians hit the radar of Russia's anti-nuclear war early warning system. Are you kidding? Are you kidding? You want to really end the world by destabilizing the early warning system against a nuclear attack of a nuclear superpower? But they did that at 2 sites. What we're seeing is exactly Ukraine becoming the Afghanistan of Europe. What do I mean by that? I meant Afghanistan was in war for decades. It was destroyed. Its civil culture destroyed, the economy destroyed, the organization of the state destroyed, the infrastructure destroyed. That's American handiwork. We were there. We were there all that time. All we wanted was our place there, our piece on the board. But that's what's happening in Ukraine too.
So, you know, what I get from this, and I've said before many times on the show, is that, you know, they don't really care about the Ukrainian people. You know, it's the regular folks that always lose, you know, in this game that is being played. You know,
no, this game is about draining resources from Russia, making them incapable of military aggression anywhere else in the world,
at the expense of the Ukrainian people. You know,
as long as they don't capture and get the resources that Ukraine has that they're after, that's all the rest of the world cares about. They want to stop the resources because Ukraine is a very rich country that is underdeveloped because of all the bullshit going on. They didn't have the money to do it, but didn't need it while they were part of the Russian Empire. But now that the Soviet Union broke apart, or excuse me, the Soviet Union. But now that the Soviet Union has broke apart, Russia was actually the most overproduced, overmined, overused amount of ground in all of their empire because it was easiest to get to, and they were working from there out. So that's why all the countries around what Russia has taken back and all of that have a lot of resources because they weren't able to get to them yet. And that's what they want, and that's what we want. That's why we want to make them NATO, because that way Russia doesn't get those resources. And that's why Russia wants them and will move in when they can. And another thing with Ukraine, we have it being the seat of the Russian Orthodox Church.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a very, very important. People don't understand how important that is to Putin.
Right. And to the Russian people too, you know, and to some of the Russian speaking Ukrainian folks.
That is a keystone of the original Russian Empire, of which Ukraine was part of the original Russian Empire.
And so we can see what the future will be. for Ukraine by looking at Afghanistan, as far as it's going to end up being some extreme religious group that takes control.
Yeah, not necessarily. I'm not. No, that's
Without
not.
a doubt. Without a doubt.
No,
And look at
it
Iran.
ain't happening now. That's not the way it's going to be. This is Russian Orthodox Christian. This is not Islam.
Okay, what does that mean?
You're trying to compare what's going on in the Middle East under Islam and all of that. You're trying to make a correlation to it being the same thing going on with the Russian Orthodox Church and stuff like that. No,
it won't be the Russian. It won't be the
big fundamental difference. It
won't be the Russian Orthodox Church. It won't be that, but it will be a religious extremist. And religious extremism can be
2 years
within.
ago, you were saying it was the Nazis. Why did you change all of a sudden?
That's where we're going. That's kind of where we're going with this. But it's not.
No. That was your words. You were the one that dropped Rule 62.
There's evidence of that out there. It's really not an argument.
I know exactly what happened, and I know exactly why it happened. I've explained it. You've tried to blow it off several times, and it's the very fact that the first time, which you completely neglected to mention in most of your stuff about Ukraine, the first time they invaded and took territory from them, it was these freaking Nazi militia guys, these white supremacist guys, not really Nazis, that fought them back. And because of that, they became heroes of the people. They had to get integrated into the army because that was only the way to hold a freaking government together. And then now, because of that, Russia turned around and used that, which they caused, to use to invade again once they were able to. You're confusing propaganda and pretense.
Well, religious extremism.
You're actually supporting the pretense to their invasion, not any actual reality of why it happened. But the pretense, you are supporting the pretense that the Russian government used to invade them.
Yeah.
And not what? Okay, go ahead.
Religious extremism can be in any religion. Okay. And I saw something on recently where they were showing Iran some years ago. I think it was in the 80s. And the way Iran looked and the way the women dressed and the way their economy was and how their cities were.
In the 70s, under the
It had been the 70s.
Before the Ayatollah took over. This I know quite well because all that you were talking about right now was when I first was introduced into politics, when I was going from being a teenager I was a teenager when a lot of that happened. And that was my first realizing how fucked up shit was in the world.
Yeah, so it went so left for the Iranian people. And so now you have religious extremists.
No, that was under the guys that the Americans supported.
As a result of what happened. So now you have religious extremists running the show, and basically the people are oppressed. The people are forced to live this way. The women not being able to. Anyways, we know the story. What I'm saying is, this is what happens. This is what happens as a result of this kind of stuff. It lands on religious extremism.
You just used a Middle Eastern example to say that was going to happen under a completely different kind of religious system.
Because I'm saying it doesn't matter what religion it is.
It absolutely matters. It absolutely matters because you are saying a religion that promotes violence against people who are non-believers and one that does not. The fundamentalists of the religions are different, and you're saying that they're going to be the same. I'm not denying the fact that there's not going to be probably shit like that, but it's not the fucking same. And by you conflating it to being the same, you are the one that is actually making the Middle Eastern religious people, the Islamists, sound like it's better. Because, well, it's always going to happen anyway.
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. And your underlying perspective on this is putting Islam as a
as a violent religion who has come in and subdued the people, just kills people who go against them, throws acid on women who preach for education.
Yeah, so this is the problem I have, that you feel like
I'm not talking about newer Islam and how I've told you very specifically on multiple occasions. There's fundamentalist Islam and there's modern Islam. There are two different separations of that religion, if you want to call it that way. But it doesn't matter either way when both books say it is absolutely okay to defile, defame, cheat, kill, and lie any non-believer.
I mean,
it's a different religion. Okay.
They said the Jewish says the same thing. The Goam,
No, they don't.
right? It's my point
give me
is
the passages. No, give me the passages. If
I mean,
you're gonna stand by that statement, I need a passage.
I had it. I didn't want to share it because it's going to be viewed as anti-Semitic. So I didn't. I was just looking at it earlier, and I fought with whether to cover that in the show or not, and I decided not to. So
fair enough. Fair enough. For purposes of not getting us chopped by assholes, I will walk away from that.
That was the reason why I chose not to cover it. So, but
and
religious.
You're talking about an Old Testament, which is a different religion again.
I mean, there's different sects within Christianity. Christianity is violent too. I mean, look at the freaking
people who don't understand Christianity are violent.
Look at the what am I trying to say? The damn Crusades. Well, you can't say one religion is more violent than another or some shit like that.
People who took the word of Jesus and God wrong, changed it, and went ahead. We're not talking about.
And you can say the same thing about the extreme Islamists.
We're not talking about, the Russian Orthodox. No, I'm not. I'm talking about what's being active in 5 to 7 countries now, today.
As a result,
very living moment that I can point to and show examples all around that fucking area and the globe.
As a result of religious extremism.
And that's why I say fundamental. That's why I say fundamental. That's why I say specifically say that they are different. They follow different ways than we're talking about.
Public.
There are a lot of modern Islamists that don't believe that, yet at the same time, they don't remove it from the book. They don't remove that permissions. They don't discuss how those are wrong, but they don't discuss them as wrong because they cannot be wrong because they are the words of Allah. Allah cannot be wrong, period, end of statement. Because he is the one, he is the disciple, he is the one, he is the last prophet.
And Christians say the same thing. Jews say the same thing.
Because no, they don't. Have you actually studied the religions?
Absolutely do, and I absolutely have.
Just read the topical, or you just read the topical and go for the headline?
No, I
absolutely. I'm seeing a whole bunch of headline and stuff like that, but I'm hearing a whole lot of stuff that is 100% against the quotes, the research, and the teachings that I have looked into and understood.
I've took multiple classes on this shit. Anthology of Religion was a class I took. It was an anthropology class. Like I've looked at this stuff very thoroughly, bro. Like and taking tests and written papers on it.
Oh,
Yes.
you've topically covered it in a side class. Needed to get a few hours for the overall degree.
That's my major, bro. That's my major. Let's move on. Let me read this right here. It says the most this is the comments behind this headline right here. It says Americans are terrifyingly supportive of nuking civilians in North Korea. A new survey finds that a third of Americans embrace a nuclear strike that would kill 1 million people. So then the tweet he
But
says,
why would we?
let me read the tweet reply. It says, the most annoying thing is most Americans can't even tell you why they hate North Korea. We killed 2 million Koreans in a gross violation of their sovereignty, but we
I
hate them.
consider the source of this already and realize it needs to be ignored.
Okay. And then it says, we implemented brutal economic sanctions on the country for having the audacity of choosing a different economic system than us, but we hate them. What the hell did North Koreans do to Americans that caused them to hate them so much? So we're talking about how basically like the media or the narrative others people and dehumanizes them to justify treating them differently or killing them, if you will. Tweet replies. Let's see. It says, we hate North Korea the way they treat their people. So in response, we should nuke their people. How does this make sense? Americans are so pathetically brainwashed. Another comment, it says,
that whole statement there from the original one is a shitty fucking statement that's doing nothing but there to incite and telling, just it literally groups everybody together and says, you're all fucked up. Fuck them, man. Like I said, I consider the source of what that's from, who posted it, what their at is and shit like that, and realize you're there for one thing. To shit on whatever you can to make people feel bad about America or to join a crusade against them. This is anti-propaganda. This is negative shit. I have never met a single person in my life that says, we should nuke North Korea because we don't like them. Never heard it.
well, it says
Now,
it's a third of Americans. That's not everybody, but that's a lot.
A lot of people sit there and go, well, you know what? Less than 3% of fucking people are trans or are gay, yet how much control do they have over the opinions and what people are saying? Much less politics. This is just a shit on article by a group that is always just doing fucking peanut gallery shots at whatever they can to get clicks and freaking headlines. Nobody wants to nuke North Korea. Now, were North Korea to cross over, nuke one of our allies or shit like that, yeah, I hear people go, oh, fuck, if they fuck somebody up, nuke them back.
I've seen a lot of posts.
Go, we need to drop it on. Yes, because you subscribe and lean to the way where that is primarily kind of shit is primarily highlighted with what you see.
Yeah, I've seen Reddit posts. I've seen Instagram posts.
It leans towards the stuff that you go for. And then you don't look at who's saying it like some of this and don't realize that half of this shit is spam bot bullshit. Matter of fact, if you run half of it through ChatGPT, you find out that it is word for word written by most of them.
Let me read some more comments. It says, this is why I like you better than most of the people on the right. You're constantly anti-war, and I think anyone else who will recognize that. We can debate economics once we get rid of the military-industrial complex and APEC. Another comment, it says, the Korean War is often not mentioned but it was said we dropped more bombs in Korea than during the entire Second World War. North Korea can sort out its own affairs. We should drop all sanctions on it and on other countries. Trade invites dialogue. Sanctions are now only increasing our isolation. Our weaponization of the dollar and endless sanctions is going to be a catalyst in our downfall.
No, the politicalization of the tariffs and trade stuff is going to be the downfall, not the use of them properly. I'm sorry, back before we put a federal income tax in where people had to pay taxes at all, anyone, the government made money off of tariffs and trade and making it equally competitive. We had roads, we had schools, we had infrastructure, but now we're leaning, we turned around and started taking money from the people. They're saying, oh, well, companies used to pay up to 80%, 90% taxes. Well, that's fucked up too.
You don't think that the United States or South Korea could benefit from trade with North Korea?
Well, when we have a fair amount of their population eating bark soup, then I think that it's not that great of an idea. And if we do, we enrich a country that makes sure that they keep their poor worse than we do. And if you don't believe me and don't understand it, look at a couple of people that are going around right now who have escaped from North Korea and are actually telling us the truth. Look at the history book that they stole and smuggled out of that country. I mean, look at the way the government is. Look at the way they're educating and treating the people. No, I don't think we should have extra trade agreements. Because right now, you trade extra food with them, and it goes to the upper. It never gets filtered down to the people. And that's a problem with the way things are going on. And if the government is going to starve people out and we still give them all this money, all this food and all this shit, and the people at the bottom are still suffering worse than in our own country, then no, I don't think we should participate.
Well, if us caring about the people of North Korea is one thing, but us, benefiting from some trade with them is a totally different deal.
See, here you're preaching the other side. Fuck the people, let's make money.
Well, I'm saying logically it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. What are the benefits to us?
Let's make money. While all the other times you want to argue, fuck the corporations, fuck the country, let the people have it.
I'm saying it's stupid. The sanctions are dumb. The same thing. Why we have sanctions on Cuba?
In this argument compared to your others, what is it about North Korea that makes you feel happy and fun? It is another example of socialism they're full-blown communism that has failed and failed its people and gone to the point where they pissed off the fucking world around them where they don't want to deal. They're firing rockets and missiles over other people's countries and shit like that. They're dropping fucking trash in the country next door. I mean, come on, man.
So this is what we choose to sanction. So then why don't we sanction?
You're going to turn around and say Saudi Arabia and dumb shit like that. I'm saying why start with them? I'm saying get off your fucking high horse about this country and that country and start making it toward all of them.
Yeah, well, that's
where it's needed, and not try to make new lines to where people are already.
That's what I'm saying. It doesn't make sense. It's not. It doesn't add up.
I got a better idea. Stop fucking with them entirely and telling us why we should support a country whose leader says he invented electricity, and that is what their people are taught. Well, the father of this one birthed himself and taught himself mathematics with no help. I believe that's what that one is. I mean, You're saying all of this, but you won't listen to what people coming out of there say.
Why don't we sanction the
Why don't we
Emirates?
listen? Why don't we open our minds and listen to the other side and to people coming out of there as to why it's a bad idea? Why do you want to measure it against other metrics which don't apply?
No,
Yes.
it doesn't make sense. It doesn't add up. It
doesn't add
bullshit.
up because you want to use different metrics for different people. Because you want to say, well, these people need to be done this way, while you want a different hand with everything and throwing a whole bunch of money with those hands instead of drawing a line and going, we have certain ideas and beliefs that we will not compromise on. And if we cannot agree, then we cannot do business and trade because we will not accept that. We will not promote a government or a person that does this. You know, I mean, you don't understand about that.
But we're cool with Saudi Arabia. We're cool with the UAE. We're cool with Israel.
Here's where you want to. What about Israel? The one that literally the day that they got recognized as a country by the world, were literally within 12 hours attacked with bombs and rockets from 7 different countries around them.
There's no
the very day, within 12 hours.
There's no rhyme or reason.
Guy.
There's no logic to this.
Come on, like I said, you're saying no reason, no logic, but you're applying different rules to different areas. Or
no, the United States is providing different rules and different criteria for different countries.
You actually just said the bad guy was the one that got attacked by 7 countries. You literally just said that. And I'm not even supporting one or the other.
Let me read a couple more.
I'm not pro either one. I'm against Hamas, but that's all I'm against.
Let me read a couple more comments. It says, most Americans can't even find North Korea on a map. Most Americans can't find any foreign country on the map, maybe except Canada. We hate North Korea, Iran, Russia, and China because we have to hate someone. Americans grow up watching Hollywood movies. Though there are plenty of bad guys and evil empires in space, we still need some enemies on Earth. So America, as the only superhero on Earth, can fight against and defeat them. Otherwise, how can a superhero never fight? Another comment, it says it's called propaganda. Another comment, it says Americans don't hate North Korea. Americans hate authoritarian dictatorship. Another comment, it says, I can give you my guess on why many Americans hate Koreans, even if you mean well. The small amount of information you provided about the Korean War is incorrect. Many foreigners have come to Korea to die. We've been invaded. Wow, this is too long. I'm not going to read it all. We've been invaded by a long list of forgotten kingdoms. There are many caves and underground tunnels that have existed for hundreds, if not thousands of years. I estimate the total death toll, including DPRK, PLA, and the ROK, US, UN, to be 1.3, 1.5 million. The reason some historians put the death toll over 1.5 million is that they believe a massive famine occurred, but new studies have shown it was mitigated by Chinese aid. Did you know that 21,000 of 34,000 Americans were killed in the first 9 months of the war? Most Americans have no clue on how unprepared the US or ROK were. South Koreans didn't receive adequate training, weapons, and equipment until late spring 1951. The U.S. had also reduced its defense budget and castrated its regiments. You can sense the resentment in a tone of choice of words in some American military reports. Occasionally, you might find an old article in the opinion section of newspapers written by very bitter war veterans. As they got older, they mostly calmed down and made peace for the most part, but many held onto their resentment. You should look into Korean War POWs. What is this guy even trying to say?
He is literally debunking all the shit that I was saying, all the stuff I was talking about. How it's lack of information about the conflict and shit going on, about stuff going. It's like you said, it's too long. You didn't want to read it. What is all this shit? That's why we have a fundamental difference sometimes, is because you actually don't look further into this. You get your headlines, you get your talking points, but you don't see. Korean War, I understand more of because my dad was in it. You know, and I've learned all this stuff because I had my shit kicked in. I just didn't decide to go to school one day. I've been an active participant in knowledge, learning, and government since I was 16 years old. And that's why
the last part, he says, I know your kind is all about international interconnected solidarity, but you might want to take a closer look into their state ideology. It doesn't have much of a resemblance to what Karl Marx envisioned. Yeah. Meandering. Let's move on. It says fascism is colonialism turned inward. This one, it says extreme poverty rate in Vietnam by year. 1993, 80%. 2023, 4%. It says GDP per capita grew a staggering 2,000% during that period. Another economic miracle from a quote unquote communist country. And they're talking about Vietnam. Let's see some tweet replies. It says 2 secrets to this explosive growth: manufacturing and exports. Exports grew 100-fold over the last 30 years. Manufacturing is now 25% of GDP. Another comment, it says, meanwhile, 32% of British children are in homes in poverty, and this isn't even a factor in the election right now because all parties agree on pimping the country out to tax-free oligarchs and military excess. It says, shocking indeed. It says the government has estimated that 4.3 million children, or 30% of all children in the UK, were living in a relatively low-income households after housing costs in 2022 to 2023. This represents an increase in the previous year. Where's the rest of it? Yeah. You know, one political structure is not necessarily superior to another. It's about how it's used, how it's done. But we've been taught that, you know, certain systems can't work and that they fail no matter what. Let's look at this one right here. It says, Max Blumenthal posted this. He says,
anyone that's ever played a civilization game knows better.
Yeah. Max Blumenthal posted this. He says, this big lie is far more destructive than Trump's slander of the Central Park Five. It is a lie spun out of ethno-supremacist liberal Zionists to justify genocide. Note how Debbie Wasserman Schultz is looking into the camera, and instead of reading from the script prepared by Israel lobbyists. Let's play this. Oh, we're not going to play it all because it's too long. So Dana Bash, it says, Representative D.W. Sweets joined me at Inside Politics to shine bright light on the sexual violence Hamas used as a weapon of war, detailed in Sheryl Landsberg's documentary. Representative D.W. Tweet says denialism of that violence is outrageous, and we have to make sure we knock it down.
Joining me now.
This kind of relates to what's her name getting fired from the Hill because she was interviewing a sister of a hostage, and then the lady asked her, like, you have to believe women or whatever. And then whenever she said that, that's when she kind of rolled her eyes, and that's what led to her being terminated.
Joining me now is Democratic Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz of Florida. Thank you so much for being here. Look, Amit's story should make every human being sick. Sexual violence. We know that Sheryl Sandberg documented those horrific stories so that the world could bear witness, ice out denialism, and yet denialism still exists. How do you combat that?
Well, Dana, thanks for shining a spotlight on this. The primary way that we combat it is by doing exactly what you and I are doing here, and that's making sure that we can shine a bright spotlight on the sexual and gender-based violence that Hamas perpetrated on its victims on October 7th, and that very likely we know are continuing to perpetrate that sexual violence. And Sheryl Sandberg's film is searing, but I'm really proud of the Vice President and the Second Gentleman for using the White House's platform to make sure that the world knows that Hamas used sexual violence and continues to use it as a weapon of war, is violating women, Israeli women. And I hosted a forum with the Second Gentleman on Capitol Hill a few months ago, and the Israeli police came and showed us videos that were taken by Hamas terrorists themselves, engaging in the kind of sexual violence that Sheryl's film shows, cutting off the breasts while raping their victims, and firsthand accounts from first responders, as well as others and Israelis who were hiding from Hamas terrorists.
And
the denialism is outrageous.
Yeah,
we have to make sure that we knock it down.
And as we both said, the Vice President and the Second Gentleman, they're hosting an event at the White House. What words do you want to hear from the Vice President during that event today?
Well, I'm confident I'll hear what she and the Second Gentleman have continued to say, and that is that there was sexual and gender-based violence that occurred on October 7th, that Hamas uses it as a weapon of war, and that any organization, either international or domestic, that denies it is essentially allowing the commission of acts of violence again and again. There can't be an exception for Jewish victims. There can't be an exception for Israelis. The idea that it's Me Too unless you're a Jew is unacceptable. And when you have Republicans in Congress, like we did last week, defund the UN Population Fund, which provides resources all over the world to combat sexual violence against women across the globe, you can see where Republican priorities are compared to President Biden and Vice President Harris, who are using the administration's platform to lead in making sure that these crimes are not only not denied, but that there are consequences for them.
Just a couple.
It always somehow brings it back to like saying, my administration or, the side I represent is going to deal with this situation better than the other side. Like it's always comes back to that. Like it's the whole point of everything, every conversation, every freaking topic, every freaking news story comes back to the same thing. My side is better than the other side. Let me play some of this. I really want to find the clip in here. It's not letting me see the scroll, and I don't remember the time stamp. So I'm going to have to skip through this a bit probably to find what I'm looking for. But I know it's right up in here somewhere.
All right.
And,
Thanks.
okay. And Brad, I sent you that the correct file.
But I just want to contrast all the discussion of alleged systemic rape that we saw on October 7th with a story that we saw in the New York Times inside the base where Israel has detained thousands of Gazans. And I'm going to read a part of that article. It says, Mr. Al-Hamlawi, the senior nurse, said a female officer had ordered 2 soldiers to lift him up and press his, and I always say this ironically, but this really is a trigger warning. There's sexual violence description. Mr. Al-Hamlawi, the senior nurse, said a female officer had ordered 2 soldiers to lift him up and press his rectum against a metal stick that was fixed to the ground. Mr. Al-Hamlawi said the stick penetrated his rectum for roughly 5 seconds, causing it to bleed and leaving him with, quote, unbearable pain, unquote. A leaked draft of the UNRWA report detailed an interview that gave a similar account. It cited a 41-year-old detainee who said that interrogators, quote, made me sit on something like a hot metal stick and it felt like fire, end quote. And also said that another detainee, quote, died after they put the electric stick up, end quote, his anus. And those are just the examples of sexual violence in that article. And the article talks about physical torture. And, you know, we did not see kind of CNN host after CNN host talking about Israel's systemic violence and torture and sexual violence against Palestinians, interestingly enough.
Yeah, the irony of having someone sort of holler "believe women" at you in the wake of those reports, because those were out at the time, you know, reports
Yeah.
of sexual violence, particularly that targeted Palestinian men, but also gender-based violence, ripping people's head coverings off and the like, have been coming out for the whole duration. I mean, prior to October 7th, obviously, it was a known that there was systemic sexual abuse of Palestinian prisoners in Israel, including Palestinian children. So, I mean, again, like, it's interesting because all of that was running through my mind during the interview as well. You know, the extent to which, you know, okay, I'm going to pick my battles. I'm not going to confront this woman, you know, who's not a politician and is going through something very personal. But certainly the irony of someone citing fake debunked rape claims when there are all of these very real, very brutal sexual assault to the point of death. Katie, what you just described was a man being anally raped to death. And your average American has no idea that that happened because the only place we're allowed to talk about it is on Twitter or YouTube. And maybe not, I'm sorry, maybe I shouldn't have said those words because of monetization and the way that this app acts about app acts about the R word, but I mean it's frankly it's overwhelming. I'm furious, but then I go through these periods of like my adrenal glands can't take being in a constant state of rage. It's dispiriting. And every day on the Hill, it was like a battle to, like, it almost felt like from the production perspective, I almost understand them wanting to put a cap on stories that make Israel look bad, because there were so many stories that would come out on a daily basis that make Israel look like a craven, despicable, unsupportable nation. That like I felt like I had to pull punches sometimes because I'm like, wow, this feels like I'm beating up on Israel by just reporting the news as it's coming down the transom. And then there's this effort to sort of other sides, like both sides it. But the reality of the situation is that there have been no more, you know, there's soldiers that are killed in the conflict, you know, fighting in Gaza, but there's no more civilian Israeli deaths. That all stopped them after October 7th. And every single day we get news report after news report about a new bomb that's been dropped on somebody's new refugee camp, or some person in a fishing boat that's been hit with sniper fire, or a man selling at a vendor on the side of the road who was shot by a drone yesterday. And it's like, I guess we're not going to report that because what? The one horror story bleeds into the next and there doesn't seem to be any end to it. I don't know. Right. It was a very, very, very toxic situation for a.
She's talking about the situation that led her to being terminated from the Hill, you know, and there's new video that has come out recently that's freaking corroborating all of this stuff. And then you have the debunked stuff that people keep on repeating. And that's what the lady in the interview was doing. She was repeating debunked stuff that was even debunked by Israel. And she was still repeating that stuff. And it's like, so it leads to old girl getting terminated because she rolled her eyes, after a person is making comments on some debunked ass stories.
Believers Credible brought it to the Israeli government, and they
Are you really, after the other
And we also
day,
know-
and we discussed about the half a dozen things over the course of time, going to sit there and literally reduce it to, oh, she got fired because she rolled her eyes?
Well, that's what it
No,
looks like.
dude. We sat there for an hour and talked about all kinds of different things and some other stuff and reasons why. But now on this show, you're going to be, it's because she rolled her eyes.
Well, that's the
Come
clip
on,
that
man.
kept getting played. Like,
Yeah,
that's what
but
it
we
was.
also looked into other clips. I also put other clips in the fucking chat room and talked about other things, but it's all because she rolled her eyes. Okay, man.
Let me play some more of this.
related to that article that I showed about the sexual abuse of Palestinian detainees, prisoners, innocent people who were rounded up. We also know, of course, that Francesca Albanese, the special rapporteur on the Palestinian occupied territories, has talked about how there are so many reports on sexual violence, and she's talked to many journalists, and then they, for some reason, never run the interview. And we also know that Josh Paul, who was at the State Department, who resigned from the State Department, told Christiane Amanpour. So this was not on some, lefty YouTube show. This was on CNN, on Christiane Amanpour, told Christiane Amanpour that there was a case where an NGO, a Palestinian NGO, said that a boy had been sexually abused in custody. The State Department, Believers Credible, brought it to the Israeli government, and their response was to criminalize and shut down that charity. So again, this is something that the media could be talking about, but is choosing not to. Really quickly, I just want to show, before we bring on our next guest, who I'm so excited to bring on, I just want to show, this is what Debbie Wasserman Schultz had to say about the sexual violence on October 7th. I'll carry images of sexual violence from 10/7 with me for the rest of my life. So that suggests that she saw those images, although, as we know, much like Joe Biden claimed to see images of atrocity, he did not. He lied about that 3 times. So to be fair to Debbie Wasserman Schultz, I guess she's more honest. She's going to have to lie 2 more times before she beats Joe Biden's record of dishonesty. And then let's see what Dana Bash said about it. So Dana Bash says, Debbie Wasserman Schultz joined me to shine a bright light on the sexual violence Hamas uses as a weapon of war, detailed in Sheryl Sandberg's documentary. And Debbie Wasserman Schultz says denialism of that violence is outrageous, and we have to make sure that we knock it down. Now, this is not the first time that Dana Bash has lied about the sexual violence weaponized on October 7th. Let's take a look. This is from December. This is Dana Bash with Premila Jayapal.
15,000 Palestinians have been killed in Israeli airstrikes, 3/4 of whom are women and children.
And it's horrible, but you don't see Israeli soldiers raping.
Well, Dana, I think
Palestinian
we're
women.
not.
That is such a perfect example of how this is used, right? It is used to justify what Israel is doing because there's a qualitative difference between the Palestinians,
that's right,
Hamas, and the Israelis, who just don't do that. They just don't do that kind of
That's
violence.
right. But also Israelis are fully doing that.
Right.
They're fully raping Palestinian prisoners.
Right.
So
yeah, but Dana Bash
I
doesn't
mean,
think
that's what I mean.
possible.
Like, I know this is maybe like a pedantic point. Like, maybe it's just so obvious, but I ever since I did that dissident dialogues debate back in like at the beginning of last month, whenever it was, it has been so crystal clear to me that the foundation of everything that Israel is doing, it's propped up entirely on a racist perception of who Palestinians are. Like, it is unsustainable. All of this would sound crazy if you replaced any other like white race, like white Christian, like group of people, like Danes. Yes, just slot that in when they say Palestinians, and you will immediately hear how absurd and nonsensical the arguments that are being made are. And at that point, Pramila Jayapal, who I have a lot of issues with, was rightly pointing to how cataclysmic 15,000 deaths were.
Right.
15,000. We've been stuck at 35,000 for like 3 months now because Israel has killed every person with the expertise and institutional ability to keep track of the dead. Hospital administrators, doctors, humanitarian aid workers. And so we're stuck at 35,000 because Israel has killed the people who do the counting. And we're still not able to convince our elected leadership to change course, even as I'm sure you covered this elsewhere, Katie, even as today we all watched Benjamin Netanyahu give but was basically a middle finger to Joe Biden saying, we're not going to stop. This isn't our peace deal and we're not going to stop.
Right. Well, I'm so excited to be bringing on another guest to join us. This is the first time he's been on.
So it's really not about Brianna Joy Gray. They fired Kate Helper. They fired that was from the Hill. Mark Lamont Hill got fired from CNN. You had Mehdi Hassan, who lost his job. What's the other lady's name? I can't think of them right now. So it's like an attack on journalism, you know. Anybody that's speaking the truth or anyone that's critical of this situation.
None of them are journalists. They're op-eds. They're all throwing out different views on topics and stuff like that with very little research beyond headlines and stuff. I mean, you're talking CNN, you're talking about all the Daily Wire. That's just all those. They don't talk about the news. They talk about their opinions and part of the news. I mean, not a single one of them is looking at different sides. Not a single one of them is trying to actually bring up alternative or mixed facts. They all are going one side or another. They're taking sides. That's not what journalists do.
Mehdi Hassan's not a journalist. Mark Lamont Hill's not a journalist. Come on, man.
Dude, who are we talking about right now? Are we talking about them? Or are we talking about these two people?
The ones I said.
I put fucking headlines.
Those
I'm
are the
talking
names.
about what you are presenting right now, not just them. I'm seeing, like I said, as far as angles go and way things are covered, this is slowly becoming KCNN, King Chaka News Network. The show is becoming more opinion oriented than news oriented.
Okay.
It used to be we would discuss news and stuff like that. Now we're discussing opinions and memes and comments that it's just difficult.
I'm gonna do this last clip on this particular topic, and then we're gonna move on from this topic. But let me play this.
There's this bombshell report that just dropped from Khan News in Israel yesterday. IDF knew of H group's plan to kidnap 250 before October 7th. report. They had information down to granular details like the precise amount of hostages H group was going to take, what they were going to hit, how they were going to hit it. I mean, the New York Times already kind of broke this back in December 2nd, but it is significant that the Israeli media is now reporting on it. I mean, it doesn't really change much. It does make the Hannibal Directive being employed with Apache helicopters at the Nova Festival even more gruesome than it already was. And it does make the IDF's decision to allow the Nova Music Festival to be extended by a day to October 7th more gruesome. If I were them, I would just plead complete incompetence and resign. The other alternative is not great, but is this going to change anything substantially? Is it going to change Israel's conduct in the war? Probably not. Most people are still in support of it. Are they all of a sudden going to be not about ethnic cleansing? No, they're just going to blame Netanyahu and then keep doing what they were doing. And was this like a 9/11 conspiracy theory situation? Did they allow it to happen so they could have an excuse to destroy Gaza? Maybe, but I'm personally not a conspiracy theory guy. Whether October 7th was allowed to happen or whether it was just complete incompetence or a mixture of both doesn't really matter. The performative effect, genocide, would have been the same. So yeah, it's an interesting report. I mean, we're going to do an episode on it tonight on Colonial Outcasts, but I'm not really sure what difference it's going to make, but we'll see. All right. Cheers, y'all. So apparently...
Yeah, so it came out that they knew what was going to happen, but I don't think that they just allowed it to happen. I think that they didn't think that, you know, Hamas could pull it off or whatever. It was their ego got in the way. You know, that's the way I think about it. You know, they just really just felt like they had total control of the situation, and there was no way that they was going to be able to pull that stuff off or whatever. So, but the Israeli people aren't happy to hear that, you know, they knew what was going to happen. Like, it was all kinds of reports, you know, they had intelligence on exactly what they were planning to do on October 7th, and they didn't do anything about it. So that's that. Couple comments. It says, well, looks like Izzy Media is finally catching up. Another one that says, my stepdad.
Oh, no, it sounds just like what people were saying about 9/11. Oh, they already knew, but blah, blah, blah. It's the government's fault that it happened.
Comment, it says, my stepdad said this to me the morning of October 8th. He said, there's no way Israel didn't know, and that they intentionally let it happen as a result to go after Palestine. Another one that says, Western complicity gains a new dimension after this, but using civilians as cannon fodder just to create a narrative is beyond war crime. Yeah. The information came out that they knew, but I don't think that they really thought that it was going to actually happen. It's like you get reports that someone is going to try to bomb a building
What
or
happened
whatever.
was they thought it was, there were some facilities and stuff nearby that they were supposed to be attacking that. But something happened and they drew up short or in the wrong area. So they went after the festival instead. I mean, they actually had people waiting, which is why they got there. Well, I'm not going into that. But like I say, I'm not going to debunk the common narrative that's going on right now, because it was something that we knew back then, because everything we knew back then is wrong, because it's all changing now and it's all Israel's fault again.
All right, moving on. Check this out. It says 23% of Americans said they chose not to call an ambulance during an emergency because of the cost. And only 1/4 of Americans who were uninsured for the last ambulance ride had no out-of-pocket costs, according to a survey conducted by YouGov. So there's a chart here. 91% of Americans who could not afford the potential cost of an ambulance but needed medical care ended up going to the hospital the last time this happened. They were typically driven to the hospital. 48% of these Americans were driven by a friend or a family member, and 13% used a rideshare service, while 18% of Americans drove themselves to the hospital. 8% rode in an ambulance anyway because of someone else's decision. Yeah, so yeah, if for me, if it wasn't like completely, utterly no other way, would I take an ambulance only if it was like life or death. If it wasn't literally life or death, I'd find another way to the hospital. I wouldn't take the ambulance ride.
Dude, I got into one and my seatbelt, when I got out, my seatbelt had obvious bruises here and here. It ended up in the long term cracking my sternum. But not only did I not go by ambulance because I was just it just hurt a little bit to breathe. You know, I've had some cracked ribs and busted ribs before, but I walked off from the whole accident going, nope, no ride, no ambulance, because the ambulance ride would have been $7,300.
Yeah.
Plus whatever they did to me there, which truthfully I should have done because I have a longer term noticeable damage to my ribs. I should have gotten it. I should have gone there and had them set and taped and all that properly. But I did because I couldn't, as a bartender, afford $12,000 hospital bill.
Yeah, because it's not just the ambulance ride. Once you get there, you have the emergency room care. So that's going to be a whole nother bill.
At least 3 to 5 follow-ups. I probably should have had some physical therapy too, because these muscles were all messed up, and I had problems with the full use of my arms for probably 2 years. But it was still cheaper and less damaging to my life and my ability to live. Because if I had gone to the hospital, what would have happened was I wouldn't have paid the bill. I would have let it fall off on my after, you know, I would have challenged it when it hit my credit report, because a hospital bill can't be counted against your credit, an emergency bill. And then I would have just never paid it, which would have ended up going toward the government covering it as part of losses in overall for the hospital. And that 13,000 bill, when they found out I didn't have insurance, offered me $2,300 to pay it off. But when it went to collections, it would have gone back up to the 12,000 and then forwarded to the government as a loss overall for the hospital at 12,000, and not the 2,300 that the actual bill would have been for.
That situation is absolutely criminal.
That is why we can't do healthcare for all right now. Because if we do, the government is going to be paying that $12,000 bill every single time instead of the $2,300 bill. We got to fix the graft. We got to fix that bullshit before we can just sit there and do it. Otherwise, the medical industry is going to become the new military industrial complex. Actually, it already is if you look at it, thanks to our current president.
I completely disagree with that. Let me read the caption. It says,
That's because you've never looked into anything beyond an American knows about other countries. You haven't looked into the health for all systems. You haven't looked into how they're treated. You haven't looked into how they're handled. You haven't even looked into the American version of it, which is the VA, which is where it's going to come from, which 80% of the people that have to deal with the VA think it is a complete horror and shit show. And that is the model of healthcare for all. And the everyone that wants that is so willing to just throw all this money into it without trying to make it productive in any way first. We have to find a way to make it financially feasible, or we're just being irresponsible throwing money at it. And I am 100% for healthcare for all. Not in any current shape that anyone is trying to present it or make it happen.
Let me read the caption. It says, another marvel of privatized medicine. According to a study by YouGov, 23% of Americans have chosen to not call an ambulance in emergency out of fear of the cost. Comment, it says, an ambulance is an expensive $2,000 Uber ride. If it's not life-threatening, have someone drive you to the hospital or get a $30 Uber. The fact that I'm giving alternative options is what's wrong with our healthcare system. It's for profit, not for our benefit. We need universal health care.
You know, we have like 15 major hospitals in the greater Houston area. And you know, there's almost 50 ambulance services, private. That's the kind of shit that we need to look into before we start saying everybody gets health care, is the graft and the pull and the charges that come from shit like that. If that shit gets reduced, if that comes to where we can get reasonable with it, among other things, stop letting one company be the only one that produces a drug that's been out for 50 years. You know, stop.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm going to go right to insulin because that is the weakest argument on both sides of the fence. The patent was given away for $1. At this point in time, there's only 3 companies that make insulin, and all of them cost, I mean, it's understood. I don't make a lot of fucking money. And I will tell you, 1 vial of insulin is as much as I make in 2 weeks.
Yeah. So,
and that's if you get the cheap ass insulin off of the, like, you know, CVS member plan.
the base of the problem is no political will. And the reason why you don't have political will is because of the propaganda.
It's not political will, it's political graft.
The reason why you don't have it is because of the narrative that's been given to people that you know the private sector can do a better job than the government. So as long as people
they absolutely 100% can do a better job. And that is what higher insurance and people buying insurance beyond what is normal is for, is to get priority service, to get better service and things like that. But right now, our ability to do healthcare is less than a lot of third world countries if we were to go on a government standard. Not because of that, but because we do not have a healthcare system that can handle it.
You just gave an example of the number of private companies that do the ambulances.
Yes.
And you cited that as an issue with the system, a problem with it.
Absolutely, 100%.
So that came as a result of privatizing that sector or that.
No, it did not. That comes from the fact that it comes from privatizing. But the fact that the government cannot get into that to reduce that and stuff like that is a problem with the healthcare system, not privatization. The government being able to do healthcare and all that is a problem of the graft and the problem of how the fact that it's gone to this point where they can charge someone $14,000, but if you don't have insurance, you can walk out of there. If you tell them, oh, I don't have insurance, your bill is now $2,300. That's the difference. It's not the privatization, it's the greed, it's the corruption, it's the graft.
Which comes from
people
privatization.
Milking $10,000 out of a $2,000 bill. That's not privatization. That's criminal.
It is criminal, and it comes from privatization.
It does not come from privatization. It comes from greed.
Which an individual company is going to do if they can.
And that means every single corporation in the world is greedy. Every single business owner is greedy by that definition. And I'm not going to accept that. I'm saying flat out that right now, the problem with the healthcare system and the VA, which I'm using as the basis, is the fact that it is no longer run by medical people. It is run by accountants. Our government free healthcare is run by accountants and not medical people. And that's the problem. And that's why we can't get the money down. And I'm talking about our public health there. I'm talking about our Medicare. I'm talking about VA. The models that we are going to use to build the public healthcare system off of are flawed. And they leak money like a sieve. And they do that because it can't, right now, the government won't get in and regulate these problems. And until those problems are faced and regulated, it is not viable to throw money at it, because all we're doing is feeding a system that is a bottomless fucking pit, like we're doing with the military and sending money to other countries. It's not the way it needs to be done. It needs to be done better.
Well,
if it's not done better, it should not be funded as it is.
Well, with that perspective, with that point of view, then it's never going to change. It's going to continue to be the way that it is.
See, that's your negativity. That is your hatred and anti of everything. Rather than build something up, you're perfectly okay with fucking a broken system. I don't want that kind of shit.
The model.
I want something better to be done, not just throw money at the system that's already fucking broken.
The corporate model is all about taking care of your shareholders.
At what point have I talked about the corporate model?
Well, you're talking about privatization.
I'm not talking about, yes, they can do better, and private insurance should be available for people who want better treatment, who can afford better treatment. That is a completely different subject than healthcare for all. If you got the money to pay for it, okay, let's use Canada, your dream state of healthcare for all. Standard everyday tests in a regular area take months. If you've got a broken arm, they will tell you when you come into the emergency room that, yeah, we can handle it for free and all that if you're willing to wait 8 hours. But if you go down here to the private health clinic for a few $100, they'll take care of you right away. That's the kind of health care you want. You want the kind of health care that says, well, this treatment we know will work, but since it's $40,000, we're going to take this $10,000 one first. Oh, shit, that $10,000 one didn't work. Okay, well, we still don't want to pay $40,000, so let's try this $20,000 one. Oh, shit, that didn't work. Let's try this $30,000 one. Now you're $60,000 in when the $40,000 was guaranteed. Oh, shit, it didn't work. Well, we can afford the $40,000, but unfortunately, since you've gone through all of this extra damage and your diseases advanced so far, because our first 3 didn't work, because that's all we were willing to give you, you're just going to fucking die now.
That's the same system we have here, except you're paying out of pocket for all of that.
No, that's the system that our Medicare, Medicaid, and VA is based on. Not privatization. Now, I'm not talking about private. You got the money, you can fucking pay for it. I'm talking.
Yeah, that's the reason why the system is the way that it is. It benefits people who are wealthy because they're the only ones that can afford.
Now you don't have a choice.
The only people that can afford care is if you're rich as hell. Period. Everybody else dies.
You ain't getting it.
Let me read some more comments here. It says, I don't believe it's only 23%. No way it's that low. Another comment says, privatization is poison people, not profits. Another comment says, I think that percentage is very low. I think most people don't call an ambulance unless it's actually extremely life-threatening. It's just too expensive. Even
How
the
many
wealthy
times?
people I know won't
Quick
do it.
question: how many times have you had to dealt with the healthcare system and private versus public medicine available and things like that?
We don't have any public nothing, so there's no.
Yes, we do.
I haven't.
Medicare, Medicaid, VA. I've been explaining to you this the whole time. Those are all public health care. The Veterans Administration gives free medical to veterans.
Well,
This
I don't
is the
qualify
basis that
for
we're
none of
gonna
that.
use, but you know somebody that's been a veteran. I am a son of a veteran who was left to fucking die because they wouldn't give him the treatment because it was too expensive. I am talking about the actual system that is the blueprint for a medical system for all. It is jacked. It is fucked. It is not ready to be brought to a everybody level.
Yeah, so but as long as we're saying this system is not ready to be brought to everybody level, then
So
it's
what you're
never gonna
saying is
be.
just take everybody's money and throw it at it until it becomes right, till the money finally sticks on the wall.
No, I'm not saying that.
That is exactly what you're saying when you said we need to implement it anyway.
No.
You have to start looking at the details instead of the freaking headlines. You got to try to understand the systems and how they work now to understand how to bring them to a better level.
I understand that we're never going to move forward when people think that the government can't do it. Then you're never going to be on no universal health care if people feel like privatization is better.
We got Medicare, we got Medicaid, we got VA, we have government health care. And it's trash. It's trash because we won't fucking fix it. And I'm not talking about the government. I'm talking about you, me, the people that fucking vote.
The only way it would work is if you put everybody in the system. Everybody has to pay into the system and everybody benefits from the system. That's the only way it's going to work, period. You can't have these different levels. You can't have these exclusions.
You're literally telling me that we should treat it like Social Security.
That sounds great. Actually,
Everybody,
yes.
no, and look what happened to Social Security. And look at what's happening to it.
Social Security works.
Nah, it really doesn't. You know why? Because politicians keep putting their fucking grubby little hands into the kitty and pulling it out for their pet fucking projects, and all of that money they pull out of it loses interest the whole time. Which the whole idea is it was put out of the government hands to not touch it, so it gets a decent and basic interest, and people can trust in it, but they can't.
Let me read a couple more comments. It says, Uber is the new ambulance. They should start an Uber Medical where the driver is an EMT. Another comment, it says, I had no idea how expensive an ambulance ride was until I found myself in a crisis at a medical facility and they made the call for me. I assumed it was covered by my insurance. It cost me over $2,000 for a non-life-threatening situation. I was so angry when I got that bill.
That's one of the guys that it was non-life threatening, so his insurance only covered life-threatening situations.
A couple more comments. It says, been there, almost died because of it. Another one that says, this doesn't happen in great countries. Another one that says, eat the rich. Another one that says, had a seizure at work and they called the ambulance and made me get on it. The ambulance service billed me $10,000. It wasn't a long trip, but maybe it was the monitoring. Maybe that I was in an expensive part of the country before they got the paperwork for my job. Another comment, it says, that's the design with privatized business, yay capitalism. Another one, breaking all healthcare costs are astronomically high on both your Dems and Republicans are complicit in letting it slide. Another one, the cost
You
is
realize
outrageous.
there's no country in the world that has a strictly governmental medical for all. Every single country in the world uses a socialized medicine combined with privatized medicine and insurance.
Okay. So, like, what is your point?
The point is you're literally arguing against it, which is what I'm saying. I'm promoting a dual system, but I'm saying get the graft and the bullshit out of it before the government gets a hold of it, because if we don't, we're going to end up with a black hole just like fucking foreign aid.
And I'm saying, as long as you have that
Another
attitude,
you are
it's
promoting
never going to
another
happen.
transfer of wealth.
As long as you have that perspective, it's
So
never
let's throw all the money
ever
at them
gonna happen.
until they don't want money anymore, till they're not willing to overcharge, till they're not willing to make that money. Let's just keep throwing money at them until they're no longer willing to keep that billing up and stuff. Yeah, right, dude. Okay, I see that logic.
Let me read some more comments. It says the cost is outrageous for anything related to healthcare in the U.S. Don't get me started on helicopter transports. Another one. In all fairness, 90% of those emergencies were not, in fact, emergencies. Another comment. It says in Australia, they have ambulance insurance that is very low cost, as well as private health insurance that covers one ambulance ride a year. No reason we can't have this cover in the U.S. Also, I would have thought almost 100% of people would avoid calling an ambulance due to the cost.
Well, you can't always help when an ambulance comes. Other people call it. And you actually have to sign a paper saying, nope, I don't want to be carried by ambulance.
Yeah, but if you're out of commission, if you're like not, coherent, then it could be out of.
Then we get into the credit system where a forced bill that you did not have the ability to consent to is actually not a bill that you're liable for and does not affect your credit rate or anything like that.
Let's do this one. It says Louisiana governor signs 9 voter suppression bills. It says Republican Jeff Landry wins the Louisiana governor race, reclaims office for GOP. Louisiana's low voter turnout attributed to apathy, mistrust. In an important election year featuring races for governor, lieutenant governor, treasurer, secretary of state, attorney general, and several local government seats, Louisiana saw historically low voter turnout. Experts are still looking at why. Only about 30% of registered voters cast ballots in October's primary election, marking the lowest turnout in a Louisiana gubernatorial primary since 2011. The general election in November saw even lower turnout when only about 23% of registered voters made it to the polls. This entire state didn't show up, said Ashley Shelton, president and CEO of the Power Coalition and nonpartisan civic engagement group. Turnout was significantly down among Democrats and Black Louisianians, and it was down in areas that traditionally lean more Democratic, like New Orleans. Primary election turnout in Orleans Parish was about 27%, down by more than 11% compared to the 2019 gubernatorial primary, and a lower percentage of Orleans residents voted for Sean Wilson, the only high-profile Democrat candidate in the governor's race, than for outgoing Governor John Bel Edwards in 2019. All told, Wilson brought in only 20% of the votes cast in the primary election. His main opponent, Republican Jeff Landry, brought in 52%. I think people had a foregone conclusion that every Democrat make it to the runoff when that is absolutely not the case when you've got other voters more energized and engaged than you, Wilson said in an interview after his loss. Voter apathy is a major obstacle for Democrats. It's cut off there. It says, this is why you must, Joyanne Reed posted this. She said, this is why you must vote. Louisiana had a 2-term Democratic governor, John Bel Edwards, who gave the impoverished state a chance at a healthcare access by expanding Obamacare. But then an off-year election came after Edwards' term out, and voters basically sat it out. This is the result. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry has signed 9 anti-voter bills over the last 2 months, and 2 more are awaiting his signature. In May, Governor Landry signed 7 election-related bills, including 4 that make absentee and mail-in voting more difficult. Just last week, Governor Landry signed SB 436, which requires people to include proof of citizenship with their voter registration application. Since 1 in 10 voting age citizens in the U.S. cannot easily access proof of citizenship documents, the bill could stop numerous eligible citizens without access to these documents from voting. This month, he also signed HB 114, which establishes procedures to remove people from voter registration lists. The bill could disenfranchise numerous eligible voters. Now, just 2 more bills await his signature: HB 506, which requires individuals and entities to register with the Secretary of State before conducting voter registration drives, and HB 581, which criminalizes being a witness on more than 1 absentee ballot for non-immediate family members. Yep, this is what happens.
I'm sorry, man. In no way is requiring an ID to vote voter suppression. You have to have an ID to do anything.
They didn't say an ID. They said proof of citizenship.
That would be an ID.
I don't know what they mean by proof of citizenship.
Identification. Does not an an identity card, just a driver's license or state ID.
I don't know that that is proof of citizenship.
Yeah, except in some states, but yeah, you generally have to prove you're a citizen of the state or the country to be able to get a state ID.
I don't know if that's true.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Let me read some more comments. It says, like I said so many times, the black vote in the South can wipe out all politicians, especially Republicans. But if y'all still complaining about Democrats not doing their jobs, but they are, I don't want to hear from any of you. This is the reason why elections have consequences due to ignorance and low turnout. Another comment says, this is a prime example of what will happen if people continue to sit out elections, vote for Republicans, or think they have our best interests at heart. Another comment says, Louisiana got out and vote. Republicans don't care about helping you. They care about helping the rich and worshiping a felon. Vote blue and see if there's a change in your lives. Another one, this is a damn shame. The same people who didn't take advantage of the vote might never have a chance to make your vote count again. Yeah, the Republicans benefit from low voter turnout, so that's what they like. That works for them.
Love those generalizations.
That's a truth. That's a fact. This is a weird story right here. It says mysterious monolith appears in Las Vegas desert, police say.
Yes, a reflective monolith appeared in the Las Vegas desert on a hiking trail near Gas Peak. It's similar to the one that became an internet sensation on Fremont Street during the height of the pandemic in 2020.
I was going to say, we covered that before.
Internationally, in the UK and in Romania.
Aliens?
Who put it there?
Yeah.
Or somebody just
Why
likes
not?
to look at themselves in a mirror in the middle of nowhere.
No, let's just say aliens.
Yeah, alien sounds a lot better.
The internet is buzzing once again over this. A reflective monolith appeared in the Las Vegas desert.
Yeah, this is new. This just happened. It says a reflective monolith has been spotted in the deserts of Las Vegas in what local officials are calling a mystery. A similar monolith appeared in downtown Las Vegas in December 2020, standing under the Fremont Street Experience canopy. It says, how do you think it got there? Look, DJ Quick, he says, why is this news? Yeah, that's a question I have too. But that's kind of why, this caught my eye. It kept on popping up, and I'm like, why are they even like some rich person who
It's
had
called no. It's some internet dude, something off like that. Maybe he had some money. He's popped 3 or 4 of these up just to see what the fuck's going to happen.
yeah, just to
It's
kind of
kind of
like
it's pop culture stuff. It's something that's going on other than all this heavy bullshit that we argue about all the time. Something to go, hey, what the fuck? And it's not big enough to distract from a news cycle, but it's enough to be entertained, Something that back in the day we wouldn't have heard about this for 2 or 3 years before the internet.
look at
And
it.
now it's something that we're seeing kicking off in real time and being like, hey, well, like I said, we've covered this exact pylon twice in the last 3 years or so that I've been involved in the show, because we talked about the one in the UK and we talked about the one in the desert.
Yeah, this one they just did. This is new.
Yeah, this is a new one. I'm like, cool. I think it's a cool little story. I'm waiting. Sooner or later, they will catch the guy. And we'll find out what it's about. Until then, it's awesome just to speculate, to watch the comments and stuff and see what people think about it. I mean, crap. I've used it as inspiration for a little short story here and there.
Yeah. This comment right here says, why is it a mystery? Someone built it. It's there. Y'all see it. No mystery. LOL. That's what I'm saying. Not going to spend any more time on that one.
See, again, that's one of the things that makes me curious, because you're not even interested in asking more. Which I'm sorry, I ask more about everything. And that's why I push at you sometimes and stuff like that. It's because, like, no, let's find out more. Let's go into this more. Let's do more. Because, it's not all about the evil that everyone is trying to do around us. Sometimes it's just about things that inspire your thought, that make you think a different way, that is like, it means nothing to my life, but it's a curiosity. It's something to distract myself that's not TV or someone else's story. What is the story that I can think of myself until we find out what it is?
Yeah.
It is an element of our world to ponder upon, to meditate upon. And nobody ponders, nobody meditates.
Yeah, I'm just not all interested in that. Check this out right here. It says 131 college scholarships have been put on hold or modified as Texas universities strive to comply with the new law banning diversity, equity, and inclusion programs. So it says, from Philip Lewis, for Richard Oliver, the night of June 3rd, 2024 was a parent's worst nightmare. His daughter, Devin Oliver, and her classmate, Aubrey Butts, players on the women's basketball team at Texas A&M University at Commerce, were killed in a car crash in rural Paris, Texas. The community mourned and celebrated Oliver and Butts by creating a memorial scholarship.
Okay, so before this gets into anything else, I need to say something, because I am not a fan of affirmative action. However, this is different. This is a community-offered scholarship with a specific demographic and thing targeted. I have absolutely no problems with stuff like that. Just like the NAACP, I would have to have an argument against them giving Black-only scholarships. I don't have a problem with that. If I had been up at the time for an NAACP scholarship and the colored kid got it, I wouldn't be upset. I was in an academic scholarship that used diversity to change the rules. This scholarship, being a private scholarship, first of all, should not even be covered by the diversity and things like that. Now, the acceptance of a student into college above someone else based on their color or whatever is bad.
Sure. Go ahead.
But if someone can qualify for the college and they can't afford it, and this only goes to people of color or cheerleaders or women, that should not be an issue on the table at all.
Yep.
Like
And
NAACP, like College for Queers. None of that should be questioned in this diversity thing. Only academic scholarships and admittance.
Yep.
Because an academic scholarship should be weighed by academics, not demographics. Period.
The money was raised, by the community also. So,
yeah, the community. Yeah. So, like I said, I wanted to put that in before the whole affirmative action things comes up, because it needs to be clear how I feel that these are not related cases.
in the state of Texas, they have a law against anything like this. So that's the reason why it's.
Yeah. Again, you know why? Because we, the people, did not pay fucking attention and stop that from happening. Because we're more focused on these two ignorant morons that neither one are qualified for the job. We're so focused on them that we're letting our rights get taken away from us locally.
Yeah, this came from the governor. This is Abbott's doing right here. Let me read this. It says, I appreciate the fact that the scholarship was targeted specifically for the demographic type, Black female athlete, and particularly basketball, because that's who my daughter was, Richard Oliver told the Dallas Morning News. Now, the Divine Oliver and Aubrey Butts Memorial Scholarship and 130 others across Texas are frozen or being modified as the state's public universities implement the new state law, according to documents obtained by the news through open records requests. The affected scholarships comprise 80 at Texas A&M University institutions, 45 at University of Texas affiliated campuses, and 6 at 3 other public universities. Known as Senate Bill 17 and authored by State Senator Brandon Creighton, Republican Conroe, the law is a ban on diversity, equity, and inclusion, or DEI programs at public universities in Texas, and went into effect on January 1st.
Hold on. I don't normally correct you about names in the middle of stuff, but that is Creighton.
Okay.
However, you use the word Cretan, which I absolutely think is valid in this case.
Okay.
Just to let you know, Cretan, you know what Cretan means. Use that. Crichton is the name, and I wanted to separate that because I wanted to say, yeah, that's a good name for him, Cretan, because he's got to be a fucking Cretan if he fucking says that this is bad shit.
Yeah. Let me finish reading this. It says the definition of DEI can be vague, but the law generally says colleges should not have programs designed for students of specific races or genders. When SB 17 was debated on the Capitol, the focus was on shutting down diversity training in departments that oversee diversity initiatives. Scholarships were not significantly discussed by lawmakers. Creighton did not speak to the news after his office was contacted requesting an interview about the legislation's effect on scholarships. He said in an emailed statement that several campuses have saved money by closing DEI bureaucracies. So, yeah, he's trying to say that it's about money.
This is not a college-based scholarship. If the law says college-based scholarships, once presented by the college, can't be DEI, fine. This does not fall in that category. like I said, this is the same as the NAACP offering a scholarship.
Which also wouldn't be valid here in the state of Texas.
Again, like I say, private institutions, it's one thing if the college does it, because they're saying we are willing to accept a substandard student because of their color or race or something like that. These are saying a student that is qualified, that can't afford it, we're going to give money to. They don't buy their way into those colleges. They don't get there because they're a black athlete. They're there because of their grades and the other things on their resume. Now they can these things, let them afford it. And the sad thing about it is a lot of times, unless you've got one of the baddest ass guidance counselors in existence, you won't even know about that. You know, you do a college search scholarship and you start, okay, I want this, this, and this. I am this, this, and this. It automatically excludes when I put in, I am a white male of particular descent, it completely erases anything that goes toward black, student of color, and things like that. No problem with that. Those are people out there saying, hey, here's my money. Go for it. You qualify, I will help you get there. We actually need more of that. I mean, we do.
Technically, that's the same thing that what they call diversity, equity, and inclusion programs did.
No. They are not getting into college because they are of a certain race. They are not put ahead of people that have higher scores because of their diversity. They are just being offered money because they made it and may not be able to afford it.
That's the same thing.
Instead of having to go to a local college because that's all they can afford, they've made the scores. They're allowed in. They've been accepted.
You can't
Not
get
because of
in
their color, but their ability and their grades.
You can't get in any university without having the scores. Period.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So once that's the whole point I'm making. You can't get in there. No, actually, DEI allows lower scores. It allows less community service. It allows less.
That's not true.
Yes, it does.
That's not true.
It absolutely does, and I will stand my case up in court about it.
Let me read some comments. It says, racism and white supremacy is built into the DNA of America, and we have never eradicated it. Another comment, it says, let me get this straight. You can get a diversity scholarship for being a black first-generation college student, but you can get a legacy scholarship because your grandfather attended the school during segregation. Another comment, it says, we should ban legacy preference as well. Didn't earn it. Another comment, it says, this GOP...
Again, if the legacies want to pay for it. See, here's the thing. All of this is talking about, and the diversity is saying the white kids don't score high enough on their tests to get in, but they're brought in because they're legacies. That's bullshit too. However, if they have the scores to get in and a legacy wants to provide them with a scholarship, again, that should not be an argument. All that should matter is, can their scores get them into the school? If you have no names, if everyone's just done a number, if they can get into that school, bam, you are accepted, whatever. Once you have that acceptance letter, that's when you start looking for money.
Yeah, well, the legacy actually does put certain students above other students. There's only certain slots. There's only so many slots.
Which
then they get filled by those
Exactly.
legacy students
well,
first.
Again, if the legacy students don't past the numbers, then they shouldn't be allowed in either.
Well, earlier, no one is getting in without having the prerequisites, but there's only certain number of slots.
Truth for the way it's been working though, and that's why it got torn apart. That was the hole in the argument that allowed it to be shredded. Was people that were being allowed in that were not qualified or made lower numbers than other people.
That's not
who were
true.
Applying for the same scholarships.
That's not true.
It is.
It
happened to me. I know it's true. And I'm talking about all the way back in the fucking 80s.
Let me read some more comments.
There's a criminal case. There's a case about it.
It says, this is GOP trying to make sure minorities aren't educated. This is expanded racism. GOP were like, these minorities were getting way too smart than we intended them to be. Now they have to try and keep us down. They don't want to see diversity. It scares the crap out of them. Another comment, it says, get rid of any Republican in any government office anywhere. All they do is destroy. Vote blue. Another one, Texas, I'm going to need y'all to vote the governor out and all the damn Republicans too. Well, ain't none of that going to happen. Texas is solidly red. Another comment, it says, but everything isn't about race, right? We're witnessing the rise of the American right. Another one, Texas, 0 days since being a national embarrassment. Another one, this is what happens when ideology drives policy and Republicans hold office. Anti-diversity is just racism renamed. Another comment, it says, state elections matter. I'm getting tired, y'all. This one, it says here in this history book that luckily the good guys have won every single time. What are the odds? Couple comments, it says history is always written by the victors. Another one, we defeated the wrong enemies in World War II. Another one, Norm was a very smart man. Another one, people would be shocked, wouldn't even care if they learned the truth that most things about all history is a lie of some sort. Another comment, it says, right and wrong is determined by those left standing. Another comment, Putin heard this joke and was like, hold my beer. Another one, Hiru Onoda, Vercingetorix and Tecumseh are worth studying. It's good to nuance both sides of every battle. I ain't gonna even lie. I can't even pronounce that, so you know I don't know who those are. It says Trump appointed 53 appeals court judges. No, not one was black, 0. Trump had no black senior White House staff and first without a single Hispanic since Reagan. Trump's entire administration was biggest setback for African Americans from one administration to the next since 1980s. He was like, we just hired.
But the right always goes straight for racism, right?
Trump was like, we just hired all of the, the best qualified people. That's why we have who we have. They just so happen to be the best qualified people.
Say that it's we, not me, it's we. That we take back the White House from crooked Joe Biden. I believe we're going to have the 4 greatest years in the history of our country. Before I even arrive at the Oval Office shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled. We're going to get it settled and stop the death. Under my leadership, we had no new wars. Hillary Clinton, she used to say, look at him, listen to him. He's going to start wars. No, I stopped wars. We defeated 100% of the ISIS caliphate. We brought our troops back home. I had no new wars. I started no wars, first time in 78 years. Instead of a globalist warmonger, and that's what you have. In the White House, you finally had a peacemaker at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. These terrible wars, these horrible wars that were started, they never end. We call them the endless battles. Biden's weakness and failure are putting us in grave danger. As president, I will restore peace through strength. From the very first day that
I gotta give it to Trump on this one. Most of what he's saying is true. Well, pretty much what he's saying here is true. Overall, I can't say that anything he's saying here is not true, other than that he's saying that, he's going to end the Ukraine war. So that one, I'd have to, believe it when I see it. But what he's saying here is actually true. I would say, he was talking to Kim Jong-un, he was talking to Putin. And this is what you do. This is diplomacy. This is how you end wars, is by having these conversations with these folks. He was talking to, what's his name in China?
The only thing he said that's not right is he's going to have a good, easy time. That earlier part where he's going to be able to do this and that.
Yeah, that's the part I'm saying.
As soon as he's put into office, it's going to be a 100% blue lock opposition on anything he chooses to try to put forward, even if it's actually good for the country.
Yeah,
and stop him.
And I mean, it's a lot of other moving parts. Like, he's not going to be able to just end the war in Ukraine. Like, I don't think so.
I have a feeling that he has an ace up his sleeve with Putin, because if you remember, he backed the fuck off while Trump was in office. I don't know what, I don't know why, but the way he reacts to Trump is different from the way he acts toward Biden, toward Bush, toward Obama. I'm talking about all of them.
Yeah.
And it's not here's what I think. I think Putin looks at him and goes, this is a crazy motherfucker, and I would rather go with him than against him, because I don't know what the fuck he's going to do.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. But there was an interview where Putin said he'd rather have Biden in the White House than Trump. He's on record saying that. But Trump is the one who got us out of Afghanistan. I don't know if people remember
Trump is the wild
that.
card. He's the wild card. You don't know. You can't predict him.
Yeah. So that's scary.
If you are in the wrong, according to his policies and the way he thinks, he does not have the fear of calling you out, saying it, and going, do something about this, or I'm going to start changing laws and tariffs. And he gives him a chance. I mean, he told China, look, this is what I want to do. This is what we want to do. We want to do this for balancing. And they didn't want to play games with him. So he's like, okay, well.
Yeah, I just don't know what.
Actually brought some manufacturing back to the friggin' country.
Yeah, I just don't know what tools he would have with the dealing with the Ukraine thing. I mean, like, Putin is already sanctioned. Russia is sanctioned out the wazoo, like some of the most strict sanctions like ever, over the top. So yeah, I don't know what tools he would have to actually pull it off.
No, we don't, but we do know that he did it before. We do
Ended
know
the
that
war in
Putin
Ukraine.
he was about to start making some aggressive moves and stuff over there, and Trump got in office, and all of a sudden, yeah, we're going to back off on this.
Let me read some comments. Sky News, it says, before I even arrived at the Oval Office, shortly after we win the presidency, I will have the horrible war between Russia and Ukraine settled, says Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump. comment. It says, so that
I
means
think
you can't.
I think he's got a deal in place already.
You know, he says a lot of stuff. You know, politicians say stuff. They try to get elected. They say stuff like he said he's gonna the taxes on what was it having to do with tips, no taxing tips or something like that. And in my industry, you know, that's got a lot of people going, and they're like, you know, that's good enough for them to want to vote for him. And I'm like, and politicians say stuff all the time. I'll believe it when I see it.
That's one of those. I'll believe it when I see it, and I won't start seeing it if I see him making other statements toward working toward that. If I see a definition of who is a tipped and non-tipped employee, then I will start believing him. Because I'm sorry, the guy making minimum wage at Subway that flips that thing around. Well, Subway I'm not going to argue with because they actually make your food in front of you. I don't mind dropping $1 or $2 to them. But calling them a tipped employee is BS. Calling the McDonald's guy who flips that thing around and gives you, say, tip. That's not a tipped employee. They should not be getting taxes off of their tips because that's extra income. Our tips are our income. That is all we make. We make a substandard wage. And we should be taxed at what is our paid wage, which technically would be minimum wage. So you and I would be taxed at $7.25 an hour, no matter what our tips are.
Yeah.
Tips above that, anything that's classified as tips above that would not be taxed. However, Autograt would be taxed because Autograt is part of your salary and not part of your tips.
Yeah, that would get complicated real fast.
That's why breaking that down is because now we're going to understand. He says he wants to do this, but this is the battle he's going to have to fight.
Yeah, that would be extremely complicated.
Our hosts and hostesses, they should be paid minimum wage and then taxed on tips they make off of us because technically they're not getting tips from our tip outs. They're getting paid by us. We get the tips.
Yeah,
and we give them money. We pay them out of our tips. So not only should we be able to not claim taxes on the tips, we should be able to claim tax exemption on tip outs.
Yeah, well, each restaurant would have to hire more staff to manage that.
I claim a tax exemption on my tip outs, and I've never to this date been I'm not going to say that. I'm not going to say that on the algorithm. Let's just say I haven't been called in for it. I'm not going to say the words.
Each restaurant would have to hire more people just to deal with the accounting that will be related to that, because that would be a whole nightmare.
Not really. Truthfully, that's just boom, set it up in the system. It's that easy. I would be able to do it. I would be able to do it for my entire house of 30 employees in an hour or two.
No, I don't think so. I think it would be
because if you're not tipped, any money given to you as tip is extra income.
But you just said the grats would be a different
Autograt.
part.
They already are though.
So then you would have to deal with that separately.
No, they're already considered part of salary and not tips. Again, anything that is a salary, it's already separated in my tip out, and we're using Square, which is ass trash. It's if Apple wanted to run a restaurant, how they would program it.
We write in our grats manually.
No, ours are all that. The only thing we would have to write in manually would be cash tips. And technically, from the libertarian point of view, a cash tip in those systems, well, first of all, not from a libertarian point of view, but from the vendor point of view right now, the people that pay us, they automatically assume a 10 to 15% tip on any cash tab that you record that when you don't claim cash tips for the night.
Yeah.
They automatically claim that.
Yeah.
So
Which
whether
sucks,
we got
'cause
that
you
as a
might,
tip or not,
yeah, you might not have gotten that. So that's a
right.
fucked up system.
So we're $2.13 an hour. And so at 725, our tips go up to 725, which is they guarantee us 725 an hour. So that would be what we would have to pay taxes on. Because technically that is our minimum wage salary.
Let
So
me read
anything
some.
over 725 an hour, we would not pay. The jobs that are paid like $6 an hour, like to go, because to go, they get direct tips. They should be brought up to 725 an hour. Or if left considering they get tips, then none of their tips should be taxed, even if they go above 725 an hour.
Let me read
Now the
some comments.
hostesses, here's hostesses and busboys where we get into a problem, because they're receiving money, but they are not directly tipped by the customer. They are tipped out through us. So technically we're paying them, but the store is still paying them less than minimum wage, because they're I'll leave it there. You obviously understand why this is such a difficult conversation and stuff like that. But yeah, I am 100% for tips not being counted as income. I mean, or tips below 50,000.
Let me read some comments. It says, so that means Ukraine will vanish, Poland will be next, and Putin will own the USA. Another comment says, he's too dangerous to be let anywhere near the White House. Another one says, he's a felon, should not be allowed to hold any office, lock him up. Another comment that says, if America ever allowed this man back to the White House, they will ever live to regret it. Another one, that's why you said, that's what you said about the last time. We want you in jail. You're just trying to stay out of jail. Another one, it says, OMG, here's a talk. Yeah, these comments are irritating. Let's move on.
Yeah, I mean, it's all, whenever you get comments on those things, it's all about, oh, I love, oh, I hate. It's not really about what he's talking about.
Check this out. It says, stop imagining the apocalypse and start imagining heaven on earth. It says, stop being addicted to disempowering narratives. Fear will not placate the objective reality of one's position as creator reality. As a reflection of the macro, as an expression of duality, oneness will free the soul from the mind. Oneness will resolve the fragments of separation. The light is within. Someone told me earlier that not everyone is here to pursue oneness. Some are here to be warriors, to fight, to lift the veil. Apparently more purposefully than myself. Consider one thing. If one goes to war against oneself in a literal sense and succeeds, killing one's opponent, one also dies. A solution as problematic as the problem itself is not a metaphor. Think bigger. Fear makes one small. Where is the war in consciousness? Whose consciousness? Yours. Who has ultimate power? This is dribble. I'm going to stop. I did like the beginning here where it says, stop imagining the apocalypse and start imagining heaven on earth. I think that idea is nice. It's like thinking of, what am I trying to say? A utopia, instead of thinking of, post-apocalyptic, I think that, the way that things are that way because of the way that we think, so kind of like the argument we was having earlier about healthcare, imagining how that could work will lead to it being a real thing. Focusing on how it will not work will lead to it never being a thing, basically. And this one, it says, life is beautiful. How can you be depressed? It says, how do you have asthma? There's so much air. I like that. Comments, it says, how can you be sick? There's so much medicine in the world. Another one, it says, both asthma and depression here. LOL, guess I'm screwed. Another comment says, we live in the mountains where air pressure is low. How can you have high blood pressure? Another one, how can you starving? There's so much food. It says, I know the comment section will be epic. Another one, depressed and asthma. Hold on. Another comment that says, how you thirst? There's so many oceans. I don't like this so much. It says, me reading being depressed and having asthma. Another one, how can you be forever alone? There are so many singles in the world. I'm telling you, man. Loneliness, lonely in a crowd. That's what I would say.
So many people are willing to dismiss and ignore someone.
Yeah.
For a simple disagreement or not agreeing on something. Then, people are like, well, there's so many people, I'm willing to cut you out of my life because you voted for Biden.
Yeah. And it's like so many comments on social media. It was real popular a few years ago about people saying, I'm cutting everybody off or whatever, or as soon as they do one thing, I'm cutting them off or whatever. Yeah. So how can you be lonely in a crowd? That's what I would have wrote. Another comment that says, him, you suffocate me. Her, you depress me. That's like an answer to this. So it says, life is beautiful. How can you be depressed? How do you have asthma? There's so much air. You suffocate me. You depress me. Like, I don't know, man. Another comment says, how can you be homeless? There's so many houses. Anyways, I don't know. That's my nerdy side getting like turned on by phrases. It says, let's do this one. I think I'm gonna wrap it after this one. It says, new concrete that stores electricity could turn whole homes into batteries. What an interesting concept right there. Really, really interesting.
Ever heard of a Faraday cage?
No.
That's basically surrounding yourself with electricity and signals not being able to get in and out. Any kind of signal, natural or not natural.
Okay. Sounds good to me. I mean, sounds all right to me.
If it does, if it resists the natural energy and stuff around as well as the unnatural energy.
I mean, it still sounds okay to me. I mean, if I want some energy, I go outside, I guess. I don't know. Let me read this. It says, MIT researchers have come up with a way to store energy inside modified concrete and discovered that a discovery that could someday turn homes into giant energy holding batteries. With a highly conductive material used in the manufacturing of car tires, their secret weapon, scientists created a supercapacitor. See, I'm getting tired. The technology remains in its infancy, and much more work is required to scale up the product and make the supercapacitors more powerful. But if things continue to progress smoothly, you could one day drive on a specially built road that charges your car and arrive at a house whose walls are holding the energy you'll use that night. Pretty cool if the technology is safe. Yeah, pretty cool idea right there. I mean, the way we build things definitely need to change. And it'd be great to have like self-sufficient type of homes, like, but I could see the way our economy is set up, you know, to freaking bleed everybody, that they wouldn't even they would, I don't know, tax this all to hell or make it illegal or something, because they want you to have to pay, every month a bunch of bills. That's what keeps us going to work and shit. Like, it drives the whole economy, us having to freaking pay to live. Comment says, I wonder what effects it would have on our bodies. That's kind of the thought I had too right away when I was reading this. Living inside of a battery may not be very healthy for us physically. Another comment says, everyone talking about side effects like they eat clean. Another one that says, would this be healthy? Another one that says, we got this 50 years ago. Yeah, I bet you there is technology like this already out. And see, like I say, that's why I think that it wouldn't even ever come out. It would get buried somewhere. Another comment that says, be careful, it don't explode. Wow, lithium. Another comment, scientists and regulatory agencies generally agree that low frequency EMFs pose little danger to human health, but some researchers offer preliminary evidence that some danger may exist for long-term use, specifically to the nervous system and brain cognitive function. Another one, it says, it will get squashed. The oil and consumable energy are profiting so much that it will put industries out of business, despite it being good for us and the planet. See, that's what I think. I think they would completely just smash it out. It's a reason why we still use combustible freaking engines and drive these cars and don't have trains and, don't have solar panels everywhere. It's a reason. They're making way too much money. They're going to squash it out. Anyways, y'all, I'm freaking toasted. Almost 4 hours. So, yeah. I think I had a good show today. First half of the show was really good, I think. So, I'm going to get out of here, y'all. Surprise Monday show. Like I said, I apologize for being random with the live streams. I'm going to have to come up with a new schedule. In the fall, I have 5 classes. I'm going to have to figure out how to manage that and work and making enough money and doing the show. Like, yeah, I don't know how that's going to work out. So I already been trying to change the schedule a bit to get myself in a different position. So I don't know. I really have no idea how it's going to work out. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here, y'all. Peace and love. Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for joining. Got to go.